A dark-haired boy loomed by the mansion, clenched his fist, and struck a flame to life. Then, the instant it flickered in his hands, he thrust forward and unleashed a fireball spell. The boy blasted a massive fireball from his hands, hurled it forward, and it slammed into the center of the target dead on. Then he pulled out a flask of water. Right as he did, an elderly woman stepped up, amazed and thrilled, praising him for his incredible work. She couldn't believe it at his age. He'd already become the first genius in his family, and he was dangerously good at magic. He whips around to the older woman, eyes wide with shock. Then his face flushes as he blurts that she's totally exaggerating, only for the older woman to size him up and demand what he thinks that means. The old woman stares him down and blurts out that his magic is insanely strong and razor precise. Plus, the scary part is, he hasn't even gotten his gift yet. The boy can't stop replaying what the gift is supposed to mean, because when you hit 15, the goddess hands every single person a special ability, and among all those gifts, the rarest and most prized are the combat ones. Right behind him, a blazing flash erupts, then a blast of energy slams into the ground, and a lone man silhouette materializes in the shockwave. The boy and the old woman huddle tight, shielding themselves as a savage wind howls and dust blasts upward. Then the boy peels his hand back and realizes his skin is sparking with lightning magic. Right behind the boy, his older brother suddenly shows up, totally baffled, like he can't even believe where he ended up. The boy whirls around, and when he sees Keith, recognition hits instantly. The boy steps up to his younger brother and calls out, "Alma," then presses, "Are you still training?" An elderly woman barrels up to Keith and blares that he's the most famous genius in his family's entire history since the day it was founded. Then she points out that his lightning mage gift has been impossible to ignore, and even the guards are talking about how outstanding he is. Elmo steps up to Keith, presses her hand to her chest, and tells him she's crazy proud. Then Keith admits he's using his gift at an insanely high level. Keith glares at Alma, clearly not happy with her. The guy asks, "What can I do to help Keith?" so he can talk to him on the way. Then Keith rubs the back of his head like he's about to finally say something. He tells her his father finally carved out time and sat down to talk with Alma. Alma's eyes blow wide with pure shock. Alma stepped inside the house, and right away, a servant waved her over to a table where the boy's father was already waiting, telling him to sit down. Alma marched into his dining room, slid into a chair at a table packed with every kind of food imaginable, and at the far end of the table, her father was already digging in. The man promises that in just one single day, Alma is going to get her gift. He doubles down on what he said, then keeps chewing like nothing happened. He twirls a glass of wine between his fingers, stares into the swirl like it holds a secret, and then bursts into a low chuckle. Then he admits he tried to invite Kureha and Kira to the ceremony, but they can't make it. And Alma doesn't hold it against them because they're always swamped. Alma admits he's still not ready to take the gift because he can't shake the fear he won't even receive something useful for his fellow's family. The man wipes his mouth with a napkin and bluntly says he's going to speak his mind. He's praying Alma is the one who'll carry on his sage's legacy. Alma's cheeks flamed with pure excitement because that boy knew the gifts didn't just appear, they were handed down through generations. In his family, his father was blessed with sage magic, and his mother could pull spells like a magician. So yeah, that's exactly the kind of household where the kids usually end up inheriting the gift of a wizard. Turns out the oldest son, Kuricha, got the fire mage power, while the second son, Keith, was handed lightning mage. Every single one of them got a special gift tuned to elemental magic, and that's how they both became wizards. But their gifts were on a whole other level than even the sages, because the sage could sling any spell in an instant, the top tier wizard power. The boy still remembered how his father shot from nothing all the way up to count in just one generation, racking up achievements the whole way. Alma believes that if 2 generations in the family can wield the gift of sage, the whole bloodline will become unstoppable. Then the man leans in and tells her, "I've got huge hopes for you, Alma." He says he's been watching the boy since he was little, so he's certain the kid will be a real asset to the fellow's family no matter what gift he ends up getting. Alma whips her head to her father, stunned, and he tells her good news that he managed to clear a spot in his schedule, so he'll be there for the ceremony. I blushed, and then the tears spilled out. He had to wipe them away with his own hand, and in that exact moment, he realized just how happy he really was. Alma bolted back to his room and started changing his clothes, then headed straight for the ceremony building. On the way there, he kept telling himself that even if he didn't land the sage's gift, or if it turned out to be a terrible one, he'd still push himself to the limit. The boy burst into a massive hall, only to find a sea of hooded people waiting in silence. And right ahead stood an old man in a cloak, gripping a staff like a promise. Then he declared that the Alma Fellow's gift would be announced any moment now. The boy went all in, doing everything he could to earn the reward for his gift, because he wasn't just fighting for himself, he was doing it for his father and the other family too. The old man starts talking about the gift, and the boy shuts his eyes and blushes hard, only for the man to blank out, unable to name it. The boy keeps waiting like he's holding his breath, eyes still closed, until the old man suddenly snaps his eyes wide and stares at Alma, completely baffled. He can't stop wondering what it all means. Then Alma glances at the man, and pure shock hits her face. The whole room erupts into whispering, and Alma's father snaps, asking why the gift is taking forever. Then he wheels on the priest and demands what gift Alma's meant to have. The priest just shuts him down, saying the boy has no gift. The man stares at his son, completely stunned, and blurts out what any of this is supposed to mean. The boy then replays that same crushing thought in his head that he really does not have a gift. He snaps his eyes wide and demands how something like that could even happen. Everyone in the crowd started whispering that it was unheard of for someone to show up with no gift, and they couldn't stop asking how the youngest son of a sage could possibly be giftless in his own family. Alma just stared at the priest, completely stunned, his mind scrambling to keep up. His chest felt tight, like he couldn't breathe, and then he caught it. People were talking badly about him. Alma's father storms up to the priest and demands answers, and the priest snaps back that it's just a mistake, then insists with full confidence that everyone, no exceptions, receives the gift. Alma's father rages, so the priest does everything he can to calm him down, saying this kind of thing has never happened before, and he even lays out proof that he's not lying. Alma refuses to disappoint her father, so she steels herself and thinks she has to push even harder. He clings to his father's words about inheriting the gift of a sage, and Alma gets it now. Since that gift is gone, he can't just meet expectations, he's got to fight twice as hard. The boy tries to reach his father, clinging to his old words, begging him to see the truth, that his son would be valuable to that family no matter what gift he was handed. The man whirls around and snaps, asking how Alma could dare call him father at all. Then the guy stares at his dad in pure shock. The man snaps a question at the boy. Does he truly not get where he is and what's happening? Alma tries to insist that even without the gift, he can still be useful. The man snaps his arm forward and blasts a magical attack that cuts his son off cold. A brutal attack slams down right in front of Alma, carving a mark into the ground just by his feet. The man says the gap between lacking a gift and actually having one is massive. Then he leans in and asks the boy, "So you really can't hear the voices in this room, or is it just a lineage issue?" The man spits that Alma's got black written all over the fellow's family house name and calls it a total disgrace to their bloodline, while in the background people mutter that Alma's just some spoiled rich kid. He thrusts his hand out and sneers that he doesn't need someone so useless they can't even accept the fellow's family's gift. The man throws Alma out of the fellow's family. Right after the ceremony, the guy storms straight to the nearest tavern and slams down an alcoholic drink for himself. He chugs mug after mug, and behind his back everyone whispers that the kid never got the gift he was supposed to have. Alma saw the rumors spread like wildfire. Then he ordered another mug of the drink and got hit with a 700 gold price tag. Meanwhile, the money he got from the fellow's family was a massive 50,000 gold coins. A fortune so dangerous for a man who'd been left behind by everyone and knew next to nothing about the world. Alma rises from her seat and straight up decides this isn't the kind of problem she's going to numb with alcohol. The moment the guy stepped in, every patron at the next table whipped around and stared him down. I can't believe he even made it out. He was ready to leave the tavern when a customer at the next table stumbled, caught him mid-step, and sent him crashing down. The visitors burst out laughing, and Alma tried to push himself up, but his body wouldn't move, so he crumpled back down flat on his back, finally realizing he was alone. Nobody out there is coming to save him. Alma sobbed, convinced that without the gift or the home, nobody would ever so much as look his way, and then he just didn't believe things could possibly get any worse. A boy's curiosity snapped into place the moment he spotted something way too strange, then he burst into laughter, wondering if all of this wild chaos was actually his gift. Out of nowhere, the guy snaps to it. He hears a voice in his head saying his reincarnator power has finally kicked on. His eyes snap wide with shock. He almost springs up and pats his head like he's disbelieving reality. Then he reels, trying to decode the voice he just heard, and when it hits again, it finally tells him the truth. Memories and skills from a past life get passed down to the next one. The boy tried to make sense of it all. Then agony slammed into him, teeth clenched hard as pain tore through his body, and right then a voice cut in. He'd inherited the status. Everyone in the crowd burst into laughter, clocking the guy's face twisting in pure agony, and they started grilling him, so the customers who tripped him were convinced he was just faking it, exaggerating how bad that fall really was. The boy pushed himself up from the floor and erupted into loud shouts. Then a voice hit him with the shocking news he'd successfully inherited. Attack magic, support magic, defense magic, recovery magic, space magic, spirit magic, special magic. And when he finally realized he'd also inherited elemental magic, space-time magic, and forbidden magic, agony tore through him and he burst into tears. Then Alma dropped to his knees, slumped his arms to his sides, and let out a heavy sigh, because that's when he finally understood why he never got the gift during the ceremony. Alma stared down at his hands like they were hiding a secret. He finally reached the moment right from the start. He was handed a gift, and his whole body flared with a powerful aura. Then, out of nowhere, the guy got called over and interrogated about what he was doing. Alma froze in fear, then spun around and saw a man standing there in armor, demanding, "Who are you?" Alma blurts out, What happened? And the man jabs his hand toward the tavern, demanding if the guy is responsible for what's happened to the patrons. Alma spins around, and that's when she sees it. Every single person in there is knocked out cold. The boy snapped to it. This was real magic energy, and when the reincarnator was inherited, a massive wave of spell work crashed out, blasting straight through anyone who couldn't resist. He slid into a fighting stance and snapped, "Alma, what are you doing?" Then he leaned in and demanded, "And who are you?" He clocks Alma and instantly assumes she's just another bandit. Then his mind spirals, how in the world did that guy have the strength to handle every single customer? Alma tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but the man yanks the conversation away. He lunges to attack and swears it's pointless to talk to him at all. Then Alma slips out of the blow. Alma shuts his eyes and thinks, so that reincarnator wasn't just luck, it's a gift I got in my very first life. He knew the reincarnator only grants one single rebirth, and when he's reborn, his skills and memories snap back at age 15. He thrusts his hand forward and snaps into magic, casting a spell of darkness void. A black portal tears open, and out spill skeletons. Panic hits him so hard he can't even speak. Alma suddenly remembers it. His first life got spent building pure power, and once he gambled on his second life, he walked away with every kind of magic. A flood of skeletons surged through the portal, smashed into the man's senses, and knocked him out cold right then. Alma stepped into the middle of the tavern, stared at his own hand, and realized his second life had finally begun. The knights interrogated the tavern crowd where the fight erupted. Then one patron blurted out that a boy from the fellow's family was in there. One knight swore that every patron in the tavern dropped cold last night, and the second knight demanded to know why, only for the first to admit he has no clue about the details. One of the knights spots an alley and asks if Alma could be hiding in there, and the second knight snaps back that there's zero point in hunting the guy in that spot. His interlocutor shoots that idea down hard, then leans in and convinces the knight of one thing: if they catch Alma, they'll get paid a fat reward. The knight agrees and slips into the alley, only to miss every single person watching. Alma snapped his magic and climbed onto the wall, vanishing from sight so the knights below wouldn't notice him. Alma snaps that the tavern incident is already getting noticed, then sprints along the wall like he's got one shot right up to the roof. Alma decides that hiding in the Empire as an exile isn't the move, but he has no idea where he can run next. Alma remembers this one thing: beyond the Empire to the west lies the kingdom of Famaria. That power was legendary, every bit as mighty as Aristotle's empire, and it's been sitting there for over 200 years. If Alma's memories are spot on, his hidden hideout from his old life should still be waiting. But it's been more than 2 centuries, so he has no clue whether it even survived. Alma couldn't wait to find out how the whole world had changed while she'd been gone. Alma realizes that out on the roads, you can spot carts rolling in from the west, packed with traders' goods. He commits, he's going down, he keeps moving down the street, and the closer he gets, the emptier it looks, like he's the only one awake since it's still morning. The boy snaps to attention the moment he spots a silhouette he knows, and he freezes. Keith is standing right there, smiling as he tells him he's been waiting forever, and that's when Alma's worry kicks in. Keith grins and presses the boy, asking why he started a fight in the tavern, because getting banished for slandering the house's name clearly taught him nothing at all. Heath grins like a maniac and blurts that their father is absolutely furious. Alma grabs her older brother and begs him to wait. He scrambles to explain it was all just a misunderstanding, nothing in the bar was meant to happen, just one huge accident. Then Alma presses the guy to focus on the family no matter what, and to stop fighting his older brother at all, so he walks away from the Empire. Heath clenches his jaw with raw fury, snapping that nothing changes, while Alma just can't figure out what his older brother is even talking about. Heath insists he doesn't care what went down at the bar, because all he wants is to handle his little brother. Alma's eyes blow wide with shock. Keith thrusts his hands forward and unleashes his magic, and as it crackles in the air, he admits, with brutal honesty, that he's been mean to Alma his entire life. Alma tried to make sense of it all while Keith poured out a terrifying surge of magical power and raged with wishes for his brother's worst fate. Alma snaps to it. Keith is hurling ball lightning straight at him. A plain thunder spell that can hit way harder depending on who's casting it. And since Alma's older brother is a high wizard, this is absolutely not something to brush off. A thunderous explosion erupts, and everyone nearby snaps into action. Hands shoot up to shield their faces from the blasting dust and raw shockwave. Keith grinned as the boy ate that brutal hit then. Out of the haze, a hand shot through the smoke, and Keith's eyes went wide with pure shock. He notices Alma's stone slab slammed down in front of him, stopping Keith's attack from landing. Alma slammed earth magic into play and conjured a brutal stone shield. Keith leaned in and asked his brother straight up if earth magic was actually real, and Alma admitted he'd been secretly training for it. Alma knew earth magic could smash thunder magic, no matter how shocking that twist sounded. Keith's jaw clenches with fury, like this guy has always been the same. Then he snaps, admitting he's done with all of it. Alma stares at him, confused. Keith clasps his hands and blurts that his little brother's progress was always way better, then snaps that he's sick of being measured against someone else, while Alma tries to call his name, but he refuses to listen. Heath explains that's exactly why, when he learned Alma never got the gift, pure relief hit him so hard he started laughing out loud. Alma just stared at him, and Keith shot his hand up to start ranting about how he hated the idea that someone like Alma was born in his house. He channels every ounce of magic into his fist, then declares, "Right here, I'm going to crush Alma." Alma stares at the boy in terror. She instantly knows the spell he's about to unleash. He yells that people nearby could get hit by the magical blast, and then snaps that those passersby have nothing to do with him. Keith unleashes thunder magic, and that spell looks downright elegant. Alma spots a spear of lightning, and his gut twists. Could his older brother really be about to smash through the earth and raise that shield? Alma knows this. If a ricochet slams into an ordinary person with no resistance, it's guaranteed to tear them up and leave them badly injured. Heath rips through the air with furious screams, begging Alma to turn into coal. Then he blasts a magical attack straight at him. Alma's eyes snap wide with shock. Right now, Keith can't stop grinning as a brutal explosion erupts in front of him. Heath bursts out laughing, then spots the massive mark and knows it's an attack heading his way. He lets out a heavy sigh, opens his mouth, and then freezes in shock when Alma isn't there. The boy's eyes dart, wondering where his little brother has vanished to. Keith clenched his fist in pure rage while Alma stood on the building, staring at her older brother. Then she snapped a shield into existence, blocking Keith's attack and saving every single passerby. Every passerby stared in disbelief, shocked that they'd somehow ended up trapped inside the shield. Alma cast space magic, the teleport spell, silently, and the world jumped without anyone really noticing, but the guy still burned through a ton of mana. Alma figured that hauling all those people with no spell would absolutely wreck him. Alma stares in awe at his older brother's raw strength, but he refuses to back him when it comes to dragging strangers into it. Alma shoots her older brother an apology for dragging him into this mess, then admits she had to knock him out. Rage boiled in Keith's veins. He threw his hands up and unleashed his magic, demanding to know where Alma had bolted off to. Alma stared at her brother and knew it. His lightning magic was dangerously strong. But he had one weakness. Alma hurled a tiny stone at her older brother. It smashed his head and ricocheted away, and she screamed for him to finally look. Keith spun around, fury blazing harder than before, and he demanded answers from Alma. How on earth did he survive that attack? Alma snaps back that this time it isn't that simple. Keith lets out a laugh and says the guy could have caught him off guard, but instead, he stepped into the light himself. Alma then insists he wasn't trying to start trouble. He only wanted to answer Keith's question. Alma snaps that he doesn't need those cheap tricks to handle his older brother. Keith presses. Wait, what do you mean? Then Alma claps his hands into ceiling marks and rips earth magic into the air. The boy kicks off the stone prison spell, then Keith spots stone walls springing up everywhere. He snaps at Alma, furious that the boy is looking down on him. Alma just folds his hands again and rips through with lightning magic. And somehow, he builds a full stone castle. Keith's fists clench. He's furious that Alma even mastered lightning magic, and he leans in like, "So tell me, did you catch the one detail I noticed?" Alma swore the earth got even more magnetized by her older brother's magic, so his attack would hit harder. Keith snapped in rage, trapped in the stone prison with no way out. Alma jumped in to help the pastors who'd been nearly attacked by Keith. Then she rushed to an elderly woman, steadying her and getting her back on her feet. Every passerby started blasting gratitude at the guy for saving them all, but Alma shot back that he should apologize to him instead. He tried to explain the truth, and before he could finish, someone cut him off. They stopped him and begged him to stop acting humble, because he really did pull off saving them. At first, the guy stared at every passerby like he'd just been hit with a shock. Then he flashed a grin and thanked every single one of them. Heath whipped around to Alma and demanded to know when he ever got good enough to cast spells that complicated, because something tells him she's definitely hiding the truth. Heath howls that he's let his father down by failing to inherit the sage, then snaps that the boy just wanted pity, not more damage, and demands Alma give him an answer. Alma still remembers how Keith showed him lightning magic, telling his brother it was the kind of magic you'd use everywhere, not just for striking, but even to yank objects towards you. Alma always idolized her older brother, and she dreamed of closing the distance between them someday. Alma whips around to her brother and begs him not to chase her. He claims he's headed out of the Empire and eastward, but the truth is he's sneaking off to the west. Alma flashes a grin and says he's not about to deal with Keith's crazy lightning magic again. Keith just stares, stunned. Then Keith cracks into a mad smile, convinced Alma's actually heading east. He claims the boy isn't exactly a genius, then fires the question at Alma, does she really believe her older brother will just walk away and leave him alone after something like that? Keith explodes, yelling that he's going to stalk his little brother for good. Alma whips around, locks eyes with her brother, and calls out her goodbye. Alma storms out, and everyone's stunned that the guy just bolts like that. Meanwhile, the girl in the hood keeps her eyes locked on the whole thing. The boy swaggered through the city streets until he spotted a cart that could haul him west. The driver pointed out where the boy could sit, and Alma slid into the cart. Then he shook his head, realizing this was his first time ever in a cart and he was way too far from home. A blonde girl climbs into the carriage and the guy's eyes widen instantly because he recognizes her from the square. The moment the girl locks eyes with him, his gaze snaps to attention like, why is she staring at him so hard? A man climbs into the cart and blurts that he's got to carry out an inspection. Knights come roaring up to the carriage and warn them they spotted a dangerous magician nearby. Then the knight snaps that they've got to search every passenger. Alma glances outside and spots the knights. Then one of them whips around and demands the passenger's documents, and a passenger hands them over, saying his last name. Alma stepped through the knight's checks, scanning the documents, then he couldn't stop thinking about teleporting. That night, Alma turned to the boy and demanded his documents. He froze with pure fear. Right then, a girl suddenly appeared in front of him and declared, Alma is my brother. She stared into the night sky and told everyone, I'm Luna. Then she claimed she'd come all the way from the Western Flemish territories, pulled out documents like proof, and swore that Alma is her brother. The knight snaps his focus to the other passengers and starts grilling them one by one. Luna shoots back to her spot right where she belongs, with the exact size locked in. At this point, Alma locks eyes with the girl and can't stop asking, why'd you help me? And he figures she's just grateful for how he saved her in the square, but something tells him it's more than that. The knights announce that every passenger has been checked, wave the carriage through, and the whole ride lurches forward and starts moving. Alma whips around to the girl and blurts out a huge thank you for helping him through those nights, because she didn't just help, she straight up saved him. Alma shoots his hand out to the girl, introduces himself, and tells her he spotted her in the square. Then he grins and says he's honestly so happy to meet her. Luna thrusts her hand forward and yanks it back, and Alma exhales like she's finally safe while the girl just stares at him. Remembering how the boy fought Keith, Luna suddenly blurts out teleportation, and the guy whips around because he can finally tell the girl is talking under her breath, saying spatial magic is brutally hard and not everyone can master it. The girl froze for a second, then spun toward Alma, and the guy instantly locked eyes with her like, what's going on? Luna snapped her eyes to the guy and demanded he do something for her, then the guy stared back at her with a deadly serious look. Alma kept staring at the girl as she pushed through her request, hands folded on her knees, chin lifted, and she demanded, can the boy come with me to my homeland? Emma demanded to know why he wanted to take her back to her homeland. So the girl shot back that the work she wants is something she trusts only him with. Alma pauses for a beat, then tells him she gets it all, and he instantly figures out it was the girl's plan, meant to lure him into going with her to his homeland. Luna stares at the guy and blurts out, what does this even mean? She starts swinging her arms side to side and insists that the guy totally misunderstood her, making it crystal clear she's not telling him he has to do anything. Luna's cheeks flare red as she drops her gaze, blurting that she only wanted to help Alma. Then the guy stares at her in total shock. 1 second later, Alma bursts into laughter right when the girl demands, why are you suddenly laughing? The guy instantly apologizes and Alma's like, I've got nothing against helping Luna. It's just that I'm being tailed right now and taking her with me would spell trouble. Luna shuts her eyes and admits her request is totally out of nowhere, then tells him to handle his business first. If he's got any, Alma stays quiet for a beat, then starts thinking about that same business. Alma feels it in his bones like his past self busted his butt to master powerful magic, so he could finally be happy right now, and then the thought hits, should he force that happiness onto someone? Alma lifts his head and locks eyes with her, then demands, so tell me, what does happiness mean to you? Luna can't believe why that guy keeps firing questions, and Alma shrugs it off. He's just curious what the girl thinks about it. Luna turns away, pauses for a beat, and her mind flashes to her parents' heat rushes to her cheeks. Then she tells the guy, for me, happiness is family, and he just stares, asking, why family? Luna tells everyone she truly cares about the people in her homeland, because nothing matters more to her than her family and friends being happy, laughing, and living their best lives, and that's what makes her smile. Alma stares at the girl in shock, and Luna tilts her head like, so is that the kind of answer you'll actually accept? Alma lays it out. He says she's happiest the moment everyone else is happy, and he calls that straight up noble. The girl locks eyes with the guy, holding her breath, waiting to hear what he's about to drop next. Luna demands to know if Alma truly battled his older brother, and the boy snaps his eyes up at her. Confused, she leans in and swears she was in the square, listening in as she caught pieces of Keith's conversation. Luna doesn't know it all, but she swears she heard her brother mention getting kicked out of their house, so she presses him. Did his own family really throw him out? The boy chuckles. Luna figures Almas is on this trip for revenge, and for a while, the guy just stays completely silent. He folds his arms tight and snaps that he's furious everyone deserted him, taking everything away, even his own home. He says there's something bigger than all this, that home is the place he was born and raised, where the people he's known since childhood are, and that's exactly why he refuses to hurt anyone. Luna blurts, why are you so kind? And Alma answers, he thinks he's a coward because he believes he's got no courage. Alma rushes to apologize to Luna and admits he needs a moment to think over her offer. then asks if she can hold on until the night. Luna smiles and agrees, promising he can give his answer the very next day. Alma steals his resolve. He's going to answer that girl no matter what, and he thanks Luna again, grateful for everything she's done for him. Right then, Kit bursts into his father's office, yanks the door open, and snaps, "Where are you?" He whips his eyes across the room, but his father's nowhere, just the maid standing off to the side. Rage surged through the boy's chest because he couldn't touch Alma without permission. One of the maids snapped that his father had ordered Alma brought home no matter what it took. That father sank into the librarian's chair, eyes fixed as he wrestled with one burning question. Could Alma really beat Keith? He knew the truth. Alma had no gift, but talent like his could still take down a high-level mage. And if he pulled it off, he was sure it would burn brighter than ever and restore their reputation. The maid spilled the whole story to Keith, saying Mr. P told her the same thing. Then Keith snapped, mouth flying open, fist clenching so violently it split his skin and started bleeding, while pure rage burned through him. Keith's swear words burst out of him because the moment Alma came back, everything would slam back into place, and it could even get uglier than before. He couldn't forget Alma's warning about the boy heading east. Keith whips around to the maid and orders her to tell his father that Alma's heading west. Then she obeys, turns on her heel, and rushes off to deliver the message. Keith grinned like a predator, then swallowed the dare. Going against his father was too risky, and in his mind, that meant he alone knew Alma was heading east. The boy yanked his coat around himself and grinned like there was no escape, sure Alma needed to wait because he was about to make Keith pay for everything he'd put him through. Keith strode down the hallway, laughing like a madman. Keith tried to outsmart his father, and in a twist of irony, he steered him straight to the exact right place. So if Alma heads west, the others will march right after him while Keith just gets lost, drifting aimlessly to the east. Right then, Alma sprinted toward Calistello, the city waiting just ahead. The carriage carrying the boy finally rolled into the trading city. Alma slipped into the nearest tavern, paid for a whole night, and the manager immediately told the boy his room waits at the very end of the corridor. He dropped 2,000 gold coins and was left with just a little over 1,000. Then he and Luna tore through the empire until they finally hit a trading city, so with no other option, he slammed into a tavern to stop there. Alma knew he had to hustle for money to keep moving, but if the fellows were already sending people after him, his clock was ticking fast and he didn't have much time. Alma can't stop thinking about whether to hit that dungeon. Surely there's treasure in there. Maybe even gold. Then a wild thought slams into him in his past life. He might have stashed something there for himself. He shot his hand forward and unleashed spatial magic from his spell storage. A cube and a table suddenly slam into view in front of him, and an inscription demands his attention, so he reads it, and the words hit hard with this kind of magic. You can carve out storage inside another dimension, and the size of that space is totally locked to how strong the caster's magical power is. He's convinced his worry was for nothing because in his past life, when he had to, he stuffed everything away and never once imagined he'd need any of it again. He dumped the whole inventory out in one go, and there it all was, a wild pile of skins from all kinds of animals, split out piece by piece like eyes, tails, and fangs. Alma flashed a hopeful smile, convinced this would finally save him from his money troubles because he planned to sell every last thing so he could cover his travel expenses. He stared at the panel that blinked in front of him and started weighing his next move, praying the rest of the situation wouldn't blow up. He couldn't stop thinking, would his life ever drop a real, rare item? The kind you only get by blasting dragons and monsters, and deep down, he kept guessing they'd be worthless, because nobody seemed to want them. Alma swears it can't get any worse, then decides he'll hit the guild tomorrow and ask. The guy stares at tomorrow like it's written in the air, looks out the window, and clings to the promise he made to Luna. The girl was sprawled on a tavern bed in the middle of the city, staring out of the window as her mind raced toward tomorrow. The boy barged into the guild building, spotting the Adventurers Guild of the trading city right away. And because this place is where everyone comes to rest, it's packed wall to wall. That kid was already plotting where to pawn off his magical stuff when right behind him, an adventurer suddenly hauled up a boy's head and smashed it onto the floor, grinning like, "Whew, this thing is so heavy." Alma whips around and there he is, the adventurer. Then he lets out a brutal scream. The adventurer mumbles an apology and Alma steps in close fast, asking if he's okay. The adventurer grinned, rushed out an apology for the interruption, and admitted the hole was so huge it swallowed his attention, so the boy never clocked Alma. Then Alma assumed he was around the same age, and of course he spotted the bargain bin gear. The boy figured the guy was a total newbie, hauling home his very first loot. That guy also clocked the blood smeared across the adventurer's face. He immediately figured the monster fight left him torn up. Alma snaps that it's all his fault. He didn't mean for the adventurer to accidentally drop the board's head. The adventurer quickly reassures Alma that it's okay, saying that when monsters lose consciousness, they just collapse to the ground on their own. The guy cracks a grin and introduces himself as Roel the adventurer, then immediately clocks that Alma isn't from around here, so he leans in and asks what he can do to help. Alma throws out his name and admits he's been hunting for a place to sell his materials, and Raoul snaps back that if the guy wants a pawn shop, he'll point him straight to it. They head to the pawn shop side by side, and Alma swears he's not from around here. He admits he's drowning in money, and that's why he came to this place. Raoul leans in and asks if this is really Alma's first time at the guild. Then he practically prays the boy isn't thinking about becoming an adventurer, only for Alma to blink in surprise at that. Because he tells him straight up he didn't come here for any of that. Alma tells Raoul, if you pull off that sale, you'll get to Familia. Raoul's hooked, then Alma pushes, but is there anything weird going on? Raoul shrugs it off. Nah, everything's totally fine. Rude points out that with a guild this huge, this place is packed with adventurers, and that's exactly why they've built this strict hierarchy, which the guy absolutely can't stand. Ro told Alma, that's why I asked if you wanted to join the guild, and you could tell he was already gearing up to start trying to talk her out of it. Alma stares at the boy and spots a bruise on his shoulder, so she can't help wondering what kind of fight Raoul went through to end up like that. Then the boy whips around and meets her eyes. Alma points at the boar and snaps, look, Raoul's bruised up because of that thing. She says it again, and the guy finally gets it. Then he laughs and tells the other guy not to worry, because those wounds aren't from the boar at all. Almond spots the administrator pulling up, and both boys snap their heads toward him. Then a girl steps in, smiling and asking if they want to sell their items, plus whether they've got an adventurer registration card. Alma's like, wait, what card are you even talking about? And the administrator snaps back that pawnshop services are only for registered guild members, so she presses the guys to let her see their documents. Alma didn't want to touch that poison guilt, but he had no choice. He had to grab the documents and hand them over for verification until Raoul snapped his attention. Raoul shot him a wink and promised, sure, I'll lend you my card. Then he added, use it to sell the materials under my name. He doesn't think the administration can recognize every adventurer just by their faces, and he's sure the girl won't spot a thing. Alma whips around to face Raoul. Alma says you can totally hear him, because that guy's screaming so loud, it drowns everything else out. Raoul rubs the back of his head and blurts out an apology, saying they should have talked about it way earlier, while the administrator smirks because the other guy can't even lie. The administrator shoots out a confident smile, reaches out, and says it's totally fine, nothing in the rules bans it. She tells them, if the card owner doesn't care, you're good to pass. Then the girl slams down a stamp. Raoul tells them it's go time into the pawn shop, where they'll appraise everything, and the three of them step inside. Alma tilts her gaze up and studies the weapon hanging right above Raoul's head. Elma and Raoul marched up to the gun rack, where a bandana-wearing man was waiting, and slid the materials over to him so he could sell them. The man says he usually shells out 5,000 gold for boar skin and claws, but because they kept showering him with too many this year, he's only going to pocket 3,500 gold coins. Raoul tosses his hands behind his head and grins, saying he's happy as long as he's got enough. Then he stares at his size and jokes that Raoul always shows up with boars or little animals, and he straight up asks if the boy's getting tired of it. The man whirls to the boy and demands why he refuses to chase the big monsters, then leans in and says the boy is talented enough to do it. Raoul bursts into laughter, then jolts with a sudden memory one of his friends is still in trouble and that huge guy needs help again. Then he whips his eyes to Alma and goes, why is that guy dragging his finger through the air? Alma tells the man not to panic. Her boy is about to pull everything he needs straight out of his inventory. Raoul and the man stare in shock, then fire back. So what are you planning to do? Alma realizes the others can't see the panel he's using, so he drags his hand across it, and bam! A cube materializes, leaving the man and the roll staring in stunned shock. Raoul snapped his head toward Alma and demanded to know what kind of trick he'd pulled, only for the guy to grin and say it wasn't a trick at all, it was a storage facility. This time, a man strides up to Alma, stunned that someone so young has already mastered that spell, and Alma just brushes it off, saying it isn't even that amazing magic. Then the man asks, what are you talking about? The man claims that with a spell like this, you can at least carve out a real, thriving career as a merchant. The boys fall into a tense, heavy silence for a moment. Then Raoul whips around to Alma and blurts, this is incredible, and Alma shoots back, I had no idea either, because honestly, he'd always thought magic was just convenient. Raoul whips his eyes toward what Alma brought, and his face instantly lights up with shock. He asks what the guy brought, then dives in to inspect it, spotting a story of a fire dragon, a fang, and even the belt of a demon general. Alma can't stop wondering why that boy reacts like that. She still believes the stuff he dug up from the inventory is absolutely essential. Alma shoots him a quick apology and then asks straight up if the materials he found really are going to cost that little. Raoul's eyes snapped wide and he blurted, way too loudly, why is that guy talking like this? People claim the supplies he hauled in will cost a fortune instead. Alma's on edge, trembling with tension. He snaps through the materials, then fires the question, where did Alma even get this? He insists you can't just buy stuff like this anywhere. Then he studies the fang up close and tells Alma the fire dragon is a difficulty, a threat because low-level adventurers who stumble into it don't even last a full minute. The man starts begging, drops to his knees, and bows like he's pleading for his life. Then he blurts out, asking if Alma will let him buy the materials. The man decides Alma wants to sell the materials for higher prices, so he starts running around, hammering out asking prices in different places. The man goes up to Alma and demands she sell him materials, then pressures her hard, claiming this is his only shot because he might never find the same goods again. Alma finally nods and promises she'll sell him everything he needs. The man lifts his head and fires the question, "Are you sure?" Alma throws her arms wide and backs it up again, and then he tells the man to get back up off his knees. The man blurted out tears and thanked the young man, promising he'd pay every last coin. Then he told Alma to wait just a little longer. Right then, Raul strode up, grinning at her. He pulls out a pencil and starts jotting down every material and the exact price he'll pay for each one. Alma stares at the price list and says, "You'll get 2 million for the materials." And when Raul blurts out in shock, he demands it again because this is the first time he's ever laid eyes on a number that huge. Alma had no idea they'd pay him that much. He swears every last thing still sitting in that vault is worth a fortune, so he moves like it's a trap because he's terrified someone will scam him or rob him blind. The man wipes his face, staring like he can't believe it, and blurts that he's never seen materials this good. Then he raves again about their quality, swearing they're still in perfect shape since they've been safely stored. He waves at the adventurer and at Alma, praying they'll meet again someday, and then he points Alma toward the reception to get his payment. Right as he does, Alma realizes the man has started crying again. Alma dips into a bow and thanks the man for the generous markup, and the next second he turns away, wiping tears from his face, convinced he has to thank the guy for the materials he brought. Alma and Raoud stride up to the reception, and the girl's jaw drops because that guy apparently has to get paid 2.5 million. Then Alma and Raoul roll up to a nearby restaurant and go all out ordering a mountain of food. And when Raoul asks if Alma's really sure he deserves this, he's quick to push back, saying he hasn't done a single thing for her. Alma starts pitching it to him hard, like, there's no way he could have pulled this off without her, and that's why she's so damn grateful. Then she promises she'll even pay him extra if he wants. Raoul cuts in and tells them to keep things simple and drop the formalities. Alma recalls what the girl at reception said, the money won't be ready instantly, so she and Raoul decide to grab lunch while they wait. Raoul presses Alma for how she got the materials, and you can tell he doubts the guy. He's convinced the monsters never would have fallen without backup. Alma snaps still, wipes his mouth with a handkerchief, and instantly scrambles to keep his past life under wraps. Then he fires off a cover story. He says he's from a pretty wealthy family, and when they threw him out, they handed over his things for the final time. Raoul stares at the boy, eyes full of worry, and tells him he's been through hell too. Then Alma blurts an apology, assuming she went too far, but he shakes his head and says, "It's all good." Alma admits he's even glad he left home, because now he can finally roll out his plans while Raoul sizes him up like he's hard to read, then drops his head and smirks, thrilled that Alma turned out to be such a strong young man. Alma challenges Raoul, asking if he really thinks he's strong. Raoul snaps back with a confident yes, because to him, grit and never giving up are its own kind of power. Raoul's tone turns razor sharp as he admits he wants power like that too. Then he folds his hands under the table, and that sudden shift makes Alma notice lock onto the boy's behavior. He asks if it could have something to do with Raoul's skills. Rowan tilts his head and says Alma probably already heard it from the pawnshop guy. He only hunts small monsters. Then he looks away and admits that the moment he faces a strong opponent, his whole body starts trembling. Raoul refuses to even dream about winning from the very start, and it's like he's sabotaging himself, telling his brain, before the match even begins, that he's already lost. He stares at his opponents and decides they're too powerful for him to handle. And those thoughts keep crashing back into his head over and over. Fear hits the guy like lightning. His whole body goes numb and he can't move a muscle. Alma leans in, hanging on every word from her conversation partner, while Raoul scratches the back of his head and blurts out nervous chuckles. And right there, it feels like he'll never cut it as a real adventurer. Alma tells Raoul that he sees himself as strong, even when Raoul's strength is right there for him to claim, so Raoul snaps back. What does that even mean? Alma presses on, asking why Raoul keeps calling himself inferior, and Raoul just says, because you're a good man. Alma leans in and assures him she's never met anyone who's been this sympathetic and kind to a stranger. Then the conversation just cuts off Qasim Hassa. Alma lifts his index finger, like that alone proves everything. So he starts telling Verkis that he's got courage and real leadership. Raoul blushes. And then it hits Alma. She's about to get so nervous talking to a stranger. Alma also trusts that Raoul knows his limits, and she can already see the strengths he'll sharpen later because she's warned him adventurers who get cocky and underestimate their enemies always end up paying for it. Alma flashes a grin and tells Raoul, if you push yourself, you'll become a top-tier adventurer for real. Then she jabs her thumb at her own chest like, yeah, trust me, I'm guaranteeing it. Raul's cheeks flare brighter as he whips his head to the boy and blurts out thanks for backing him up. Then he wipes a tear away, grinning and saying it means the world to hear that. He adds that Alma is incredibly wise. And he can't help chuckling, like he just had a conversation with a smart old grandfather. Alma blushes too, and he can't deny it. The guy's partly right, because in his first life, he actually lived to nearly 100 years old. Suddenly, the tavern bell above the door burst into a ringing note, and Alma and Raul snap their heads toward the newcomers. One of the men steps up and asks Raul how he's doing. Raul's shoulders tensed, and he clutched his own body with both arms as panic hit, because the boy could tell the man's presence was terrifying. The bell over the door kept ringing as wave after wave of people poured into the tavern, and every single one of them marched straight past the room until they finally stopped right at the table where Alma and Raul were sitting. Raul went cold the moment that scarred man showed up, and the man turned straight to the boy. Raul barely even dared to breathe, waiting for him to finally speak. Raul snapped his gaze away and called the man by name, Evan, and Evan's in for it. If he's come demanding the adventurer's cut, Raul tells him he won't cough up a single coin until the end of the month. Evan cracks up, slaps his palm on the table, and leans in like he's hunting for answers, while Raul drops his head in silence. Then Evan whips around to Alma and asks if she really just came to the pawn shop recently, and Alma nods to confirm it. Evan smirks, because he'd already heard her goods were worth a fortune. The man lifts a hand, lays down the guild rules, lets out a tired sigh, then tells the boy straight up, everyone has to fork over the adventurer's fee. Raul's temper starts to flare, and Evan figures Alma must be a fresh guild member, so he rushes in to convince the guy to pay his adventurer's contribution. Raul storms forward and kicks a chair, and Evan snaps his head up like, what are you doing? Raul flashes a grin and tells Evan he's totally wrong, then turns to the guy and insists Alma isn't some adventurer at all, just a client he personally knows. He points out she's not even part of the guild, so there's no payment due. Then he leans in and asks, did I get everything right? Evan smirks, shoots Raul a quick question about what happened, and realizes the kid suddenly acting fearless like all that money he got for his help is what flipped the switch. Alma doesn't catch a word of what Ro and Evan are saying then. Out of nowhere, someone yells her name. He snaps around and spots the girl at reception. Her eyes go stone serious as she tells him to come with her because she's got a major problem with her documents. Emma nods, jumps up from the table, and Raul smirks right behind him while Evan is left completely baffled, like, what is happening? Raul clenches his fist, snaps that he's got business to take care of, and tells Alma to hit the reception to find the girl. Then he pats the guy's shoulder and promises they'll meet again, hands him the thing, and walks out with everyone else. Alma stared down at his hand, gripping what Raul had shoved into it, and when he finally got a good look, he realized it was Raul's registration card, so why on earth was the guy handing it to him? Alma can tell something seriously off because the men who stormed into the tavern didn't look friendly for even a second. Out of nowhere, the receptionist blurts that the three who just walked into the tavern are some of the rare B-rank legends, and yeah, they've got insane abilities, but their personalities are absolutely dreadful. The girl blurts out that the gang has a demand every adventurer has to chip in, and it happens almost every month, because they've got power in their hands and nobody dares to refuse. Alma asks if the girl who called is the one who asked for help, and the girl bows her head and says Raul went with Evan and his gang so Alma could walk out of the guild in peace. She even thinks Raul slipped her the registration card just so he'd get paid for the materials. The girl pulls out a bag of gold coins and slams it on the counter, telling the guy to take his payment. Then she urges Alma to bolt out of the city as fast as she can. Blood sprayed across the alley, and Raul planted himself in a fighting stance. Breathing hard, Evan asked the guy straight up if he was going to surrender. The bandit snatched the guy's wallet, flipped through it, and scoffed that he'd barely earned a thing, so Evan pushes them to go back to Alma and shake loose some real cash, betting Alma's got the money. Raul's hands began to tremble, and pure terror hit him. He didn't dare keep fighting the bandits. One of them clocked the shaking right away and burst into laughter. Evan smirks and offers Raul a deal, then the guy leans in and fires back. What kind of deal? Evan tells the guy, push hard and I'll cut you in on the profits, then swears he'll get him a killer spot in the guild just to turn around and ask Alma, do you really trust him? After that, he lays it out. Raul has to bring Alma here and we'll handle the rest. Raul clenches his teeth and squeezes the sword even tighter, refusing Evan's offer. Rage flashes across Evan's face. The man charges up on Raul and hammers him with punches too fast for Raul to dodge or strike back, yet Evan lets out a tisk, asks if Raul's finally decided to play the hero, and needles him with a cruel smirk, just waiting for Raul to snap. Raul bursts into laughter, lifts his head like he's about to speak, and then Evan snaps at him with pure, furious anger. Raul breaks the story the second he meets Alma. He's sure this guy is nothing like the other adventurers. Even the pawnshop man stared in disbelief at Alma's magic, because Alma can summon materials he's never even heard of. And Raul swears it all makes sense now Alma comes from a noble family, and his skills are straight up top tier. Raul clutched the sword even tighter and swore that with all that strength, he wasn't acting for show, he wasn't pretending to be anyone, and he didn't truly back him. Raul flashes a fearless grin and flat out declares he won't betray him. Raul stares Evans down and tells him straight up that Alma was the one who really believed in him, because even if he gets beaten in the Zali, he'll call it an honor, since it'll give him the chance to protect Alma. Evan glares at the guy with pure rage, then launches a brutal punch, sending him crashing straight to the ground. Evan closes in on him and snaps that people with those views just grind his nerves. Then one of Evan's henchmen blurts that they should handle Raul and stop wasting time, and the second one nods hard, saying they've got to go hunt for Alma. Evan rips his sword from its sheath and slashes forward, flashing Raul a reminder Evan wasn't just fighting, he was determined to leave this world with honor. Ro drops to the ground, sobbing, and begs Alma for forgiveness like he truly believes that's all he's got left. Ra lived with the crushing belief that his dream of becoming a first-class adventurer was doomed to stay just a fantasy forever. Raul nearly shut his eyes, then he caught Alma's silhouette in the last second and snapped his gaze fully open, demanding what she was doing in a place like this. Alma stepped aside and glared at the bandits, rage burning in her eyes. Raul pushed himself up and demanded why Alma was here. Alma didn't waste a second. She marched straight at the bandits. Evan let out a breath of relief because Alma finally came herself. Raul gritted his teeth and pushed himself up, begging Alma to let him make the run. Then he snapped that the bandits were the toughest adventurers in the city and claimed they were after his money because he wanted to keep Alma miles away from those bandits. Evan stepped right on Raul's back and snapped, "Shut up." The kid burst into a coughing fit, crumpled, and went down hard, then never said a word again. Evan lifted his leg and strode off like nothing happened. Alma shot the bandits a furious glare, and Evan tried to calm him down. He whipped around and offered the kid money, anything to keep him out of the fight, and then he asked, "Can you really handle 5 million gold coins all by yourself without it crushing you?" The guy blurts out that those bandits are the best adventurers in the whole city. He snaps his head up, glares at the bandits with pure disdain, and then tears into them with harsh words. Alma says the bandits are the kind who only know how to bully and brawl, and he doesn't see them as real rivals at all. He believes they just pick on anyone weaker than them, and that's a truly awful part. Evan's eyes flare with rage as he blurts a curse. He was ready to let the guy walk if he handed over the money, but what the guy said lit a fuse in his chest and he couldn't just drop it. Then the man barks their names, Peter and Jake, and Peter lobs him a potion that grants steel skin. Jake slams on the magic enhancement and unleashes his aggressive force. Evan surges into a whole new level of power, snatches up his weapon, grips it tight, and grins at the boy like a predator, then taunts, asking if Alma truly believed the man could only swing a sword. The man smashes his weapon to pieces and growls that his power matches a huge orc's strength. Then Evan adds that his skin is so rock hard, nothing can possibly pierce it, and the opponent is finished before the fight even starts. Evan lunges in to smash Alma, fist raised as he screams like a man possessed, and Alma just stares face totally blank. When that fist finally closes in on his face, he snaps his hand up and stops it cold while he stays weirdly calm. Evan's eyes flew open in shock. He couldn't believe his punch got stopped. Alma was casually crushing his hand in her own, and a vein bulged on the man's forehead. Peter and Jake were left staring, stunned by Alma's powers. "There's no way this should work," Jake demanded. "How could you stop Evan with just one hand?" Then the bandit's strength surged, and suddenly what they thought was impossible felt locked in. Alma tells him that in his past life, he obsessed over nothing but magic. He tightens his other hand into a fist and growls that his inherited physical power still crushes Evan's. The very next second, Alma slammed Evan with a crushing hit so hard that Peter and Jake just stared in stunned shock, because the guy was way smaller than Evan, yet his strike packed an insane amount of power. Evan bowed his head and started coughing. Then Alma hit him again, hard. Peter and Jake immediately backed away, terrified of that guy, because he was smashing their leader with brutal, heavy blows. Alma hit Evan and the horror hit them too. Right after that, Evan's body shot through the air and slammed into the wall behind them, then crumpled onto the ground. For a while, the man didn't move at all. Peter couldn't believe Evan got wiped out even after their enhancements. Jake's jaw dropped, asking why Alma was insanely strong, while Alma just stared at his own hand like it betrayed him, because every time he punched, it throbbed with pain. Evan lunged to his feet, but his hands rattled uncontrollably, and he couldn't wrap his head around how he just lost to some smaller guy because he was done, not ready to quit, and he still wanted to keep fighting. Alma caught the guy starting to rise off the ground, and she snapped, "Evan, you're insanely strong. One hit from you could knock him out cold." Evan then blurted, "So why are you stressing over weak people like Raul?" The guy stared at him, totally baffled, and fired back the same question again. Evan, Peter, and Jake held their breath, waiting for the answer to come. Alma couldn't shake the question why was rage burning in him so hard. Then it hit him. He and Raul meant nothing to each other, and that had never happened to him before. Evan snarls at his henchman, "If I give the signal, you take Raul." Then Peter steps up, clamps a blade to Raul's throat, and waits to spring the moment the leader says so. Evan cackles at Alma and tells her Raul won't take even a step. Then he taunts, "So are you and Raul really friends?" The henchman just nods, convinced they're practically inseparable. Elmo's eyes popped wide, and the surprise hit like a jolt. Wait, was he and Raul's bond actually real friendship? Because ever since they'd only just met, he hadn't even had time to wonder. Alma still remembers his past life as a gentle hermit, and now, even though he's born into a noble family, he's got no one he can truly call a friend. Alma believed Raul was a good man, certain he'd step in to help someone he loved no matter the cost, and honestly, people like him deserve real happiness. Right now, Alma snaps back to Luna's words from the trip, how her loved ones back home mean everything to her. His eyes flare open as the memory hits. She used to glow when her friends and family were doing great, when everyone was laughing and tearing into good times, and then it clicks. He finally realizes the one crucial thing. Elma whirls on Evan and demands to know if he's got some secret power boost. Evan nods and tells her straight up that Alma is stronger than him, then taps his head and says that for an adventurer, the real power is what's between the skull. Evan fires back and convinces Alma that every real adventurer has to know how to trap his opponent and flip the whole game when it matters. He laughs and says, "Yup, this is exactly what's happening right now." Then he's so confident the ending's already locked in, and he tells the guy, "Stop trying to play the hero." Evan can't help but want those smiles. Then the guy starts laughing, and Evan stares him down and demands, "Why are you laughing?" Because that laughter's straight up scaring him. Alma blurts that he just figured something out, then strides forward like he owns the moment Evan's totally lost, so he yells at him to stop, but the man smirks and tells Evan he can call his henchman to handle Raul anytime he wants. Alma admits their views clash, but she insists he's right, and that one thing should be crystal clear to everyone. He snaps into a grim tone and says the battle's result was locked in from the start. Alma tells him everything he did the moment he first showed up in this place, and Evan just can't wrap his head around what she's really trying to say. Peter and Jake drop like a ton of bricks, and their eyes roll back as they black out. Evan shrieked at the top of his lungs, then demanded his minions tell him what the heck happened to them. I might use nightmare summoning magic. Shadowy monsters erupted out of nowhere and leapt straight onto the bandit. Evan spotted something terrifying, and the scream tore out of his throat. A few minutes later, Raul snapped back to consciousness, and then he heard Alma chanting restoration magic. The boy lurched upright, clutched his head, and swung his gaze to Evan, who was sprawled on the ground in shock. "What happened?" the boy demanded. Dark creatures crawled right up on Evan, closing in fast. Alma slips up to Raul and spills the truth. She used that summoning magic nightmare, and the second the words hit, Raul whips his gaze straight to her. Alma tells everyone the dark creatures crawl into your nightmares and feast on your fear, then says he summoned them and tucked them away before the battle even started. Raul can't believe Alma can do summoning magic. Alma adds that the bandits won't wake until the creatures get their fill of terror. Evan crumpled onto the ground and sobbed like his whole world had just shattered. Alma couldn't stop wondering what Evan was dreaming about, and Raul burst out laughing because seeing Evan cry was apparently hilarious to him, but in the end, he felt good that the bandit finally got what he deserved. Roll apologizes to Alma, and the boy snaps his head toward him. Roll tells him he only tried to help, but in the end, it was the boy who ended up saving him. Then Alma lets out a heavy sigh. Raul swore he believed in his own power, but deep down, he stayed weak. The guy snapped at Raul to stop talking about himself like that, and Alma stepped in fast, telling him he didn't end up here by accident. He came to hand over one thing, and Raul fired back, asking what it was that Alma wanted to give him. "I'll hand over that registration card just like that," I reminded the kid. "This is the one thing every adventurer must take seriously." Raul's face flushed red, and then the tears started pouring. Alma grinned and told Raul he'd grow into a great adventurer. She fully believed in him. So Raul stared back, smiling through happy tears. Alma helps Raviel up off the ground, and the guy immediately catches his breath, thanks him, and swears he'll come back and repay the debt. Raul and Alma march up to Luna's place, and Alma hammers on her room door. Luna peered out and spotted Alma, then she spotted the bandits too and demanded, "Who are these guys?" Alma spun around, said he just needed a ride to the guild, and before he moved, he decided to check on the girl first. He swings back to the girl and announces, "I've made my choice." The girl practically sparkles with excitement, staring at him. Alma clamps her hand to her chest and blurts that she's in. Then he urges the girl to head back home. A cheerful bird chirped outside the window, and Alma lay sprawled on the floor, clutching the bedsheet like it was her last lifeline. Alma shot upright, clapped a hand to his head, and shut his eyes tight as pain slammed down then. Because they decided to go to the moon's homeland together, they threw a wild party, and that guy swears they drank way too much. Alma pressed her finger to her forehead and unleashed restoration magic. Then he spun around to spot Luna sprawled on his bed, and his brain instantly raced to figure out why she was there. The girl finally stirred awake, swung out of bed, and stared at the guy with one eye while saying good morning. He totally ignored the fact that the moon couldn't renew the lease and boldly invited her to stay the night at his place, because deep down, he felt relieved that nothing went wrong. Luna stared at the guy for a moment, spun away, and told him she'd had a blast last night. Alma, Luna, and Raul were bouncing along in a carriage when Alma leaned over and asked the boy why he wouldn't stop smiling. Raul hesitated, lost in thought, while Alma couldn't wait to bolt from the trading city and head straight for Luna's homeland. Raul finally snaps and answers Alma's question. He lifts his index finger and asks, "Did you and Luna go to the guild?" Alma shoots back, "What's going on there?" Raul recounts how the bandits dropped to their knees and begged every adventurer for forgiveness, and Evan broke down, crying as he pleaded too. Raul swears the bandits suddenly flipped, apologizing and dumping every coin they stole back in his hands, and he's convinced it all happened because nightmares crawled into their heads. Then Raul snaps his attention to Luna and admits out of nowhere that he tagged along with them. And he asks if he's just a nuisance. Luna waves it off, saying it's totally fine because this guy looks pretty capable to her. Ro's gonna push for it this time. We form a team. Alma blurts, "So how are we supposed to do that?" Then Raul shoots back, "Are you sure he really agrees?" Alma shrugs, "I don't care." But the truth hits, he's never even been on a team. In his old life, Alma always trained solo. So when the chance comes, he's like, "Alright, I'll team up." Alma's hyped. It'll be fun. And Luna backs him every step. Raul lounges there with a smug smile, then suddenly booms, loud enough to snap everyone awake, saying it's time to kick off the welcoming gift competition, and Alma and Luna just stare at him in total disbelief. Raul leans in and declares, "Alright, I'm starting," then hands over the wind cutter like it's the ultimate gift. Alma swears this gift will sharpen her sword skills in a flash and turbocharge her wind magic too, even though she knows it's an absolute uphill battle. Raul tells everyone this is a must-have team ritual. The person with the worst gift has to buy the food. Luna stares at the guy like he's crazy, and Alma blurts out, "Why is this ritual so messed up?" Raul lets out a sly chuckle, convinced he can't lose, then whips his head toward the girl and asks what she's willing to hand over as a gift. The girl blurts out the word, "Sage," and it hangs in the air like a spark. Alma still remembers her father. What he desperately wanted was a sage. Not just him, but her brothers too, and so many others. Raul's staring like it's a miracle, saying he's never met a single sage, and Alma, she's squirming, blushing with embarrassment. Alma can't forget it. This gift let his father bend the whole world's will, and he never once guessed fate would drop a person with that kind of power right in front of him so easily. Luna pats Raul's shoulder, tells him wind cutter makes a perfect gift too, and Raul agrees, though he admits he'd gotten way too cocky. Raul whips his head toward Alma and demands, "So what's the gift from the boy? What does he hand over?" Then he leans in and fires off. And what freakish, rare ability does he actually have? Alma just freezes for a couple of heartbeats, then his mind detonates with way too many thoughts at once. Raul shouts for Alma, but the boy goes silent for way too long while Alma's mind spirals, terrified of what happens when his friends learn he got kicked out. Not because of trouble, but because he doesn't have the gift, he thinks about lying. Yet, he refuses to betray Luna or Raul. Raul tells him he doesn't have to say a word, he's not forcing him at all. Then the guy turns to Luna and snaps, "Don't overstep," before asking if everything he's saying is right. Luna nods and laughs like, "I just wanted to brag a little," then whips around to Alma and goes, "You don't have to." Alma's cheeks light up with embarrassment, and he's so flustered that he tells himself he'll explain it to his friends later. Alma suddenly realizes he struck gold, he's surrounded by amazing friends, and he can't help but feel insanely lucky. Raul doesn't know what Alma's gift even is, but he's absolutely sure the guy's insanely strong. He watched Alma swing both vault magic and summoning like it's nothing. And it's got him wondering what powers next Luna chimes in that Alma can even use teleportation magic, and then adds that his overall teleport game is straight up impressive. Raul can't believe what Alma's can do, and he blurts out, "Is there anything you can't pull off?" But Alma's just smirks like there's nothing, absolutely nothing. Alma heard that the only way to really measure someone's abilities and skills is the spell assessment, so he asked, "Can I try it on the guys?" They nodded, and Raul instantly lit up. He was way too curious. Alma yanks her hands over her eyes and shatters the air with a spell. Whoom! And a blinding flash erupts, staggering Luna and Raul. After the flash dies down, Alma locks eyes on Raul and instantly clocks who he really is. Then he snaps his eyes to the moon and instantly clocks its eerie details. Alma stares into it. Then Luna and Raul pounce like, "So what did you see?" The guy says their skills get judged by different numbers, and Alma clocks it fast. Raul's level is 21. Raul grins, thinking that's amazing, since he got the gift this year, because that gift makes him ridiculously quick. And the guy isn't just impressed by Raul's high level, he's blown away by his attack power and his agility too. Then he spots it. Luna just got her own gift recently. Roll fires off a question about Alma's stats, and Luna swears she's stacked with them. Then Alma won't meet his eyes and admits his stats are just a bit higher, and Roll even jokes that it doesn't sound like a full-on lie. Alma dodges the question and blurts out that Luna, fresh off receiving her gift, has an insanely high magic stat, so high that he can straight up say she's way ahead of most of her peers. Alma clocks that Luna's other stats are way too low, then points out that her roots for the other abilities stack with bigger numbers. Luna brags that she smashed monsters on the road, and she swears that's why her magic level shot up, while Raoul just stares, shocked at how easy it sounds, and Luna admits she only wanted to practice her magic on someone. Hearing those words, Alma spirals into a strange truth: he can't remember a single monster from his past life, because all he ever did was grind to grow his magic power. He bets Luna will rise as one of the greatest magicians, but then Raoul spots something terrifying. No monsters jump them on the road, and it throws him off hard. The coachman snaps his head around and warns them they'll have to cross paths with goblins along the road. Then he tells them that they could have slipped out, yet he can't shake the feeling something's off, because he's sure the goblins only fled once a stronger enemy showed up. The carriage kept rolling toward the city, and right behind it lurked a giant wolf-like monster, tracking every move with ruthless patience, no alarms, no wasted attention. Alma scanned the carriage windows, uneasy and sure something was off, but Raoul snapped at the coachman to keep those worries to himself before trouble came crawling in. Luna, Alma, and Raoul rode in a cart toward the nearest city on the border, smashed through the checkpoint, and then hit the road on foot. Raoul, Luna, and Alma marching together toward Luna's domain, which meant crossing the forest. Luna warned them it would take 2 grueling days, and Raoul and Alma braced for the long haul. They slammed the brakes and decided to halt somewhere near the forest edge. Everybody dropped down to rest. Luna struck a fire to life, Raoul snapped the tents up, and then Alma slid over to sit with the girl by the flames as they talked the night away. Alma's storage was packed with gear from his past life, so he grabbed it and went for it. And the wild part, even the water in there was actually drinkable. The moon looked broken, like it couldn't shake the sadness off. When she finally walked out of the estate, she had to haul this massive backpack with her, and it made every trip miserable. She kept wishing she had a proper place to store things like that. Raoul burst out laughing, because to him, lugging a backpack was way more entertaining. Then he credits Alma, saying that because of her, Luna gets home feeling light. And yeah, the guy was trying his best to lift her spirits. Alma says this place feels way too peaceful, like a trap with no noise, so he starts wondering if some monster's lurking nearby. Because if he's still waiting for monsters to strike, that silence just screams suspicious. He hears a rustle from the bushes, whips his head around, and there it is, a massive wolf staring straight at him, and he immediately goes on guard, locked in by that intense gaze But then Alma clocked Fenrir instantly. She realized those little monsters weren't closing in because Fenrir was right there, and every last one of them kept its distance, terrified of the massive wolf shadowing the group. While Raula and Luna were trading talk about food, Alma's mind was locked on Fenrir. He knew that wolf was razor smart, deadly in combat, and so skilled it could make even the forest feel like it belonged to it. Suddenly, the boy hears a voice inside his head, firing a question at him. Alma realizes Fenrir is hitting him with telepathy. He's sure he's never crossed paths with Fenrir before. Fenrir brushes it off, calling them strangers, and then he steps closer and tells him he came to the boy to find out what kind of monster had been crawling out of the forest. Alma can't stop wondering, wait, is Fenrir talking about him? Then Rear leans in and fires a question at Alma. So, do you know how much mana I've got? The boy locked eyes with Fenrir and said, if the wolf measures mana, then it already knows how much I've got. Alma flashed back to every brutal hour of training, convinced it couldn't be for nothing. He wasn't just stocked with power, he had a massive arsenal of spells, and he could unleash them at their absolute peak. Fenrir swears Alma's magic power blasted the monsters away so hard, the whole forest erupted into chaos. Alma stared at his magical power, scrambling to figure out how he and Fenrir's could ever scare the monsters off. After that tavern blow up, Alma clenched his jaw and forced the mana to stay trapped in his body, only letting it out when he cast a spell. The guy swears wild animals can feel things way stronger than humans can. Alma hears that and decides he can't leave it like this. He slams his hands into a seal and fires off Nemuris, his concealment magic, and the boy's magical aura instantly shrinks down, tightening like it's getting trapped. Fenrir stares at the boy, stunned out of his wits. He can't wrap his head around it. Every last trace of that aura is just gone. It's like the wolf is staring straight through thick fog, and the wolf never in a million years thought the boy would crack the problem this fast. The wolf snapped awake, whipping its gaze straight at where Raoul and Luna stood, and something felt off danger humming in its bones, so it braced to defend itself and strike back. Right then, Luna sat close to the fire with Raoul, and it looked to her like Alma's aura started to fade, so Luna spun around and shouted for Alma. Raoul clocked Luna's panic and demanded what was going on. Fenrir glares at Luna and Raoul like a storm rolling in, and you can feel it, he's finally been noticed. Luna and Raoul stare back in pure terror, then burst into screams, shocked by the sight of a massive wolf they never saw coming. Raoulu slams him down hard and then tries to crawl away, but he spots Fenrir and blurts that it's an S-class monster. Then panic hits as the guy realizes it might be his fault. They still haven't run into a single monster. Alma stared at his comrades and admitted he was the only one to blame. He sprang to his feet and told Raoul to calm down, trying hard to convince him that Fenrir wasn't hostile. In the next heartbeat, Fenrir barked in order to duck and Alma's face twisted, baffled as he couldn't see why a wolf would command a duck. Then Alma snapped his eyes to Luna because he suddenly felt a strange, unfamiliar pressure rolling off her. Luna snapped her hands into a seal, glaring at Fenrir, and with a burst of light, a woman-shaped silhouette rose behind her. Then Luna shouted the grace spell, and that shadow unleashed a crushing stream of magic. Fenrir eyed the girl with sharp suspicion and met her gaze because he could tell she wasn't backing down. Then she lifted her hands and unleashed one of the most powerful spells. Luna's spell shot out, but it never hit Fenrir. It just fizzled away in midair, and both of them froze, stunned, staring at each other like, wait, what just happened? Right then, Alma strides up to the wolf and tells him he broke the spell on the machine. The wolf nods and says he could really use backup because he refused to let this turn into a full-blown fight. Fenrir snaps his gaze to Alma, then the boy blurts out an apology, saying Luna had just been a little scared. And he apologizes again because he never saw it coming. She went straight from fear to attacking him. Fenrir insists he owes them an apology for barging in the middle of the night, calling it outright rude because he never wanted to spook the travelers or end up fighting them. Alma snaps her attention to the girl and talks her out of the panic, swearing that if a Fenrir really meant to strike, it would have attacked long before they even realized it was there. The girl buys his argument, drops her hands, and finally calms down. She won't attack now. She decides to listen to Fenrir, but she can't stop wondering why it showed up here in the first place. Alma couldn't stop wondering what spell Luna pulled, and he figured she must have used Eternal Fatigue because the magic's wave matched summoning magic almost perfectly, but he still couldn't say for sure. Fenrir finally cut through the confusion. She's a girl, not a guy, and the way that stranger talked to her made her uneasy, so she set the record straight fast. Luna blurts out, "Can you really talk to Fenrir?" And Alma grins, "Yeah, I can reach the wolf straight through telepathy." Then Luna's eyes go wide, because the guy's got way more spells than she does, even though she's supposed to be the Sage 4. Raoul crouched behind a tree, heart pounding, and demanded to know why Lady Fenrir had shown up to visit them. What was Alma supposed to say about it? Alma opened her mouth to speak, then the she-wolf cut in mid-sentence and told him, point blank, that someone was desperate to meet him. Alma shot a question who wanted to see him, and why. The she-wolf admitted the truth. They were chasing Alma's aura. The guy just shrugged and said he didn't mind meeting someone new. Then it all clicked for Alma. Fenrir only showed up because of this meeting. Alma couldn't stop wondering what kind of terrifying high-ranking creature was riding alongside Fenrir, and why. The she-wolf thanks him and tells him her son's been dying to meet him. Then, out of nowhere, a tiny wolf cub trots up right beside her, and everything hits harder. 475. That wolf cub burst with happiness, staring at Alma with eyes blown wide as if he'd found a hero. And when it realized he wasn't scary at all, it dropped its fear, expecting a monstrous monster. It got an ordinary guy instead. Alma stared at the tiny animal in total confusion. Then Luna and Raoul slid in beside him, blushing like crazy because that little wolf cub was just too adorable. Raoul, Luna, and Alma stared at the wolf cub with worried eyes because he was perched on Raoul's back, gushing about how he was into Alma. Then the wolf cub suddenly stood up, wagged his tail like crazy, and asked if he scared Luna, Raoul, and Alma. Luna and Raoul were so embarrassed their faces burned red because they couldn't stop thinking the wolf cub was adorable, while at that exact moment, Alma just stared at the little guy and gently rubbed the back of his head with his hand. Luna strode up to the wolf cub and started scratching behind his ears, then asked where he liked it most. Raoul grinned and said the little guy loved getting petted because he was insanely fluffy, just like his mother. The wolf cub begged for even more pets, and Alma felt this little guy was pure joy, happy no matter what. While Raoul begged Luna to let him pet the wolf cub, Alma wheeled around and stared down Fenrir, then asked him what kind of treasure a creature like her could possibly want in these lands. The boy paused for a heartbeat, then blurted that he had business out beyond the forest, and he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that Luna hadn't said a single specific word. The wolf snapped her head toward the sound and let those words sink in, the ones about a domain beyond the forest, and she figured, with a chill certainty, that's where the forest monsters truly rule over the wildlands. Alma demands to know what kind of monsters these are, and the wolf snaps back that this forest has been spitting out tiny edible fruits lately, so now the monsters swarm out, racing straight toward human settlements for food. Alma stared it down in her mind. Then it hit him, Tonitat, where they'd paused earlier, was only a tiny territory, so he figured Luna's domain would be about the same size. Monster attacks on those territories don't just scare people, they wreck lives, drive panic, and force survivors to crowd toward the capital, where the workforce starts running dangerously thin. Alma was convinced this was the exact problem he had to crack. This was what he needed to help Luna with. And honestly, it felt simpler too, because then he wouldn't have to waste time dealing with monsters all over the place. Alma tilts her head and thanks the wolf for the intel, and Fenrir only lets out a smug little chuckle. Then Alma blurts out her next move, even wondering whether she should order the monsters to stop striking those lands. Alma flashes a smile and insists it's all okay, then he wastes no time and seizes the opening. The she-wolf stiffens on the spot and demands to know if Alma's got any sinister plan in mind. Then Alma grins again, tells her to relax, and claims his scheme will help both sides, and that's exactly how he won her over. Fenrir swears Alma's heart is purer than anyone's, and then the boy blurts, "How can a she-wolf even see my heart?" She's gonna say it's not a theory at all, just something she's learned from experience, and Alma is left totally clueless about what they're even talking about. That she-wolf leans in and tells us, "In my 1,000 years, I've seen 1,000 souls." Then she drops the truth. She can size up the person in front of her just by locking eyes with him. Alma realizes the wolf actually likes people, and Fenrir nods along, saying she's not invading anything, she's just trying to live closer to their villages. Fenrir tells Alma, Raoul, and Luna to come to her anytime if they need help, and she's making it clear she won't let herself stay trapped in Alma's debt. The runt wolf pads up to his mother and vows, "I'm going with Alma," and she snaps back, forbidding him from teaming up with those people. Then the she-wolf and her son turn their backs on Alma, Luna, and Raoul. They spent the rest of the night in deafening silence, and Alma sat there thinking that simply meeting her son had already put Fenrir in his debt. Alma stomped out the flames and sprinted off with Luna and Raoul, and before they knew it, they hit the settlement, no, the territory of Frandal, the very place Luna called home. Luna jabbed her hand toward their path, and the whole crew barreled ahead until Alma froze and spotted an axe lodged in a stump. The settlement was completely deserted. Raoul shoved his hands behind his head and realized there wasn't a single soul in sight, and he muttered that it felt far more provincial than he ever expected. Alma nodded right along. Alma cranes her neck and spots birds perched on a branch overhead, and right by that tree, Luna and everyone else halt at a nearby house. Luna spun around and demanded what happened, and Raoul snapped back that nothing was wrong at all, then talked the girl into believing they were just admiring how amazing this settlement is. Alma backed him up, insisting that peace and quiet rule the place. Luna snaps her gaze to them, cheeks burning, and blurts that she agrees this place is amazing and everyone in the settlement is genuinely kind. Raoul tells them to keep moving, throws his hands behind his head once more, and strides forward, Alma trailing right behind him. Alma realizes Luna is utterly in love with this settlement, her homeland too, and with every single person living here, like it's her whole heartbeat. And the boy can barely wait for the moment he finally gets to talk with the locals. At last, the entire crew closes in on a 2-story house, and Luna turns to them like, "This is my home." The girl swings the door open and yells that she's home. Then frantic footsteps hit the hall, and Annie girl suddenly collides with Luna, screaming that her sister just came back. Luna doesn't even get a breath before her sister bursts out laughing, and the two girls slam straight into a tree while Raoul and Alma stare at them, instantly worried. As Luna presses her hand to where she slammed into the tree trunk, her sister lights up, finally seeing her back, and asks first how she's doing, then right away whether her health is okay. Luna's sister snaps, asking if the girl remembers she has zero clue where she is, and that's exactly why she'd been panicking, certain she couldn't get back home. Luna's sister finally laid eyes on her safe and sound, and pure relief lit up her face as she pulled her into the tightest hug. Luna's cheeks light up as she insists she would have found her way home for sure, and her sister nods, saying the girl's terrible at navigating the area, but she's got an insanely good sense of smell. Luna tells the girl to stop, but the girl fires back that her clothes got ruined because of Luna, and her sister snaps that Luna's outfit was already pretty dirty. Then Luna cuts in, demanding she quit making excuses. The second Alma heard about his sister, he instantly clocked that Luna was the oldest kid in the house. Luna says it's not the time to waste, something else matters right now, and she points straight at Alma, insisting he'll help them crack the problem. Then she swings her hand to Raoul and declares he'll come too, and the guy immediately bristles in indignation. Luna points to her sibling and tells Alma, "That's my little sister, Sanya." Alma strides up to the girl and blurts out that he's thrilled to finally meet her, then stakes his future on her help, only to notice she's mirroring his feelings while still glaring with nerves. And he can't figure out why she reacts like that. That mustache man shoots Alma and Raoul a huge thank you for trekking all the way to Frandal just for him. The man slams his name down as Eric, then points at the woman and declares, "That's my wife Mabel." Mr. Eric is Luna's father and the man who owns these lands. He and his wife Mabel look like genuinely good people, so they rolled out the red carpet for Alma and Raoul. everyone played the perfect host, except Luna's sister. Luna whipped around to her sister and blurted that Alma and Raul had shown up in the settlement from Talistella because she'd asked for them, and she begged her sister not to cause a scene or insult the guests. Sonia replayed Talistella's words in her head, then the girl spun to her sister and reminded her she'd been determined to find a powerful guy in the dungeon beneath the labyrinth city of Labistel. Sonia grabbed Luna by the shoulders, shook her hard, and blurted that Talistella is a trading city. Sonia is sure her sister has zero clue how to get around, so she asks, "Why don't you even check what city you're in?" And that's exactly why she warned her not to travel alone. Luna tells them everyone messes up, and Alma just can't believe it. She thinks Luna is finally crushed for good. Then he looks at the girls and realizes it's totally plausible. Sonia is Luna's older sister, not the other way around. Sonia spots Alma staring at her, blushes hard, and whips her gaze away while that guy is still trying to figure out why Sonia's being so cautious. After dinner, Alma and Luna's father stormed over to the farmer and grilled him about the monsters, only to hear that the monster-ridden fields are spreading like wildfire lately. The farmer swore he'd tried to stop them with one last trick. He planted a scarecrow, hoping it would scare the monsters off. The very next day in Frandel, Eric swept Alma to the locals' introductions, stories, and every secret they were willing to share. The man nods and says it's all exactly like the residents claim because for years, monsters have been striking them again and again, and the last attack was only a few days ago. Alma knew these lands weren't exactly blessed with fertility, but at least the monsters kept their distance and didn't lay a hand on anyone. Even so, the drop in trade hits hard, and when trade stumbles, the budget shrinks, and when the budget shrinks, development grinds to a halt. At this rate, the people here will never see their standard of living rise. Eric boasts that he's the king of the land, yet he can't crush a single monster and he can't even coax the soil into giving life back. The frustration boils over. Alma notices that the man is insanely passionate about his work. Behind his calm, gentle vibe is a heart that burns for the troubles of the people in his domain, and since Luna grew up watching Eric, they're basically cut from the same cloth. Out of nowhere, the man gets suspicious. He whips around to Alma and blurts out an apology, swearing he didn't want to pile on any more pressure on that guy. He's already overjoyed that Alma and Raul made it all the way to their settlement, so he tells the boy to slow down, take in the sights, and don't rush while Alma watches closely and realizes Luna's acting just like her father. The guy tried to spit out something else, but Luna marched in and cut him off mid-sentence. Alma snapped around and saw Sonia heading into the forest, and the guy couldn't help wondering what she was even planning out there. Alma whips back to Eric and suddenly remembers what he warned her. Those monsters aren't just around, they're getting more active. The man nods and confirms it's especially true for deadly poisonous lizards. He says it's prime egg laying season, so the lizards stuff their bellies and bulk up on food, meaning you'd better stay miles away from their nests right now. Sonia sprinted through the forest with a fist clenched to her chest, and then boom, she hit a massive tree and knew it was the exact place she'd been hunting around it. Lizards swarmed in overwhelming numbers. She leaned in, flicked her finger through the air to read the wind, then pulled a bag of pollen from a sleep-inducing flower and tossed it onto the lizards right away. They dropped into a deep, instant sleep. She pushed right through the lizards and finally spotted what she came for. Sonia was ready to grab those eggs, but with her sister gone, she'd be alone and wouldn't be able to carry them all. Suddenly, one of the lizards jerks awake and starts hissing at the girl, and Sinette spins around in shock because the pollen still hasn't knocked it out for hours. Then the lizard snaps its head up and hurls a hard spit straight at the girl. Sonia's eyes blow wide with pure terror. The spit smashes the tree trunk and chews through the bark, bite by bite, while the lizard just can't figure out where the girl vanished to. Alma lunged, snatched Sonia, and heaved her onto a tree branch. Then the guy spun toward her and demanded, "Are you okay?" And Sonia erupted into a scream. That guy figured one of the lizards had already fallen asleep when Sonia was spraying the pollen, and he claimed the lizard's metabolism slowed down so the pollen wouldn't work. Then the girl stared at him in total shock. Alma admits he trailed that girl out of pure curiosity, and when he asks, she finally tells him why she slipped into the forest and stumbled onto the lizard's nest because he just had to know what was going on, and the girl immediately turns beet red with embarrassment. Sonia grabbed the guy's hand and thanked him for saving her. Then together they leapt off the tree branch and crashed down to the ground. Elma snapped her head back to the girl and demanded, "Why did you climb into the poisonous lizard nest, and why do you want their eggs?" The girl just shook her head and said she didn't even need the lizard eggs. Sonia tells them the nest is packed to the brim with harvest dumped right there from the lizard's stool, straight out of their fields. He knew the settlement was bleeding losses because monsters wrecked the fields, but somehow it didn't feel that dire to him. Alma tells Sonia, "If all you want is food, then just grab some animal because that's the safest bet." Anger flares in her chest. She snaps up her voice and insists it has nothing to do with that. Then she tries to explain herself, and fresh tears spill down her face. Sonia warns that if those monsters keep tearing through their fields, her father is going to be stripped of his role as the lord of these lands. Alma and Sonia make it back home, then the girl drops off to sleep right beside the bookcase, curled up by her father's study. Eric blew up because Sonia spilled his tough situation, slammed his palm on the table, and spun around saying he'd be wiped out of the lord spot soon. Alma cut in that he still didn't know the full story, and then the man's sheer size hit like a wall. Eric tells us Frandoli has skipped the tribute for years straight, no pay, no peace, nothing. The man flat out says they have to ship a chunk of their harvest to the capital every single year, but with monsters tearing everything apart, there's barely enough left for the people living there. And that's exactly why the capital's officials start questioning whether this lord is even up to the job. The man tells him, in 3 days, a detachment from the capital will storm into the settlement and you'd better have the harvest ready before they arrive. And suddenly, Alma finally understands why Sonya went and picked that kind of reckless fight. Raul lifts his hand and admits he doesn't have the full story, but he still throws out the idea, just buy the rest of the crop from other cities. Mabel nods and says, we already thought of that too. She tells everyone, every year we have to cough up 5,000 harems. But from all those fields, we only managed to scrape together 1,500 harems. The woman adds boldly that the products have to be at least B grade because whoever buys a batch like that will burn through a ton of money just to transport it. And after hearing it all, Raul felt utterly crushed. Eric tells everyone there are only 3 days left, and his face screams that there's no escape, just that he's about to be yanked from his post and maybe even blamed for messing with someone else's interests. Sonya shoots out of bed and declares loud and clear that her father hasn't done a single thing wrong. Every eye snaps to her. Then Sonya's fury surges and she glares at Alma, saying an army of people showed up before him. The girl claims everyone promised they'd figure out a way to help their settlement and her dad instantly bought it, but those same people bailed at the first chance they got. The girl snaps her voice up and says, the land was never fertile from the start, but now monsters are tearing it apart too. Sonya keeps insisting, over and over, that her father didn't do a single wrong thing. Then she pushes Alma to see that plenty of real culprits exist, not just him, and she can't stop wondering why everyone pins the blame on her father alone. Eric strode up to this girl, placed a hand on her head, and thanked her because he's blazing with pride in his daughter, proud that she's grown into someone who can still be angry when he can't. Eric reminds everyone he's the head of these lands, the one who trusted those people in the first place, so now he has to carry the blame and the responsibility, but Sonya just doesn't get it. Luna stares at the people she loves, drowning in regret. She desperately wishes she'd gone back sooner, anything to help them. Alma knows he has to rake in at least 3,500 more harem harvest, but the storage just can't hold that much still. He can't shake one stubborn thought. He wants his family to smile again. Eric whips around to Alma and tells her they can't offer the boy a proper reward, so he won't bother trying to win him over. Yet, deep down, he still prays that when the new lord arrives, Alma will share all her hard-earned wisdom with him and the villagers. Eric is convinced the misery of these lands isn't the people's fault, it's his own, because he's the one ruling them. And even while everything's falling apart, Alma is stunned that Eric can only think about one thing, keeping the settlement's inhabitants safe and well. Alma grins and promises he'll do everything he can, then Eric presses. Will he really? And he smiles through it, relieved that even after he's gone, the lands won't be left in trouble. Alma vows she won't sit around waiting for the day men are stripped of the lord's seat over the lands. He insists that his own attempt to help the residents is just him being selfish, plain and simple. Eric's eyes go wide with shock when he watches the boy crack open his vault. Then the man demands, so what are you going to do with Alma? Alma wants Eric stuck as the local lord, so she sets him up to harvest the missing 3,500 herm crops in just 3 days, and now she's scrambling, asking herself what kind of quality that crop has to be. Raul slaps his hand on the boy's shoulder and steadies him, while Luna grips her clothes tight and gazes at the boy with pure admiration. Inside the castle, 2 men were locked in a heated talk about when the capital's detachment would finally arrive and how they needed to get everything ready before it did. The long-haired man stormed up to Mr. Julius with a furious complaint he couldn't wrap his head around why he'd been handed such a brutal, difficult task. He shoots his hand up and declares that he and his unit have served their country with honor, then snaps that the job they're being handed is reckless and demands the other man stop and really picture what'll happen to the territory and the people. Julius snaps that he's wrong, then hits him with the idea that the whole country is one living creature, so if they wanted to keep breathing, they've got to cut away the extra territory or the country dies. The man decides talking to Julius is pointless, then he snaps his fingers and armored mercenaries materialize behind him, ready to strike, while Julius just glares at the man and his crew without flinching. One of the mercenaries blurts out, asking if they really have to do this. Then the man snaps his sword up and growls that it's too late to debate what's right, turning straight to Julius and ordering him to get ready. In just minutes, every mercenary, including their leader, got sealed inside ice blocks, and Julius, the kingdom's strongest mage, crushed them with ease. Julius calls the mercenaries sinners, who shove cash into their pockets and dodge every tax, then barks an order to his men to take them down while the knights immediately obey Julius. Julius wheeled toward Sir Edward and asked if anything else was still unresolved. Then Sir Edward bowed his head and admitted there was one issue left. They had to talk about Frandl's condition. Julius and Edward march down the hallway, and Julius shoots him a question. So do you want to talk about what's going on in Frandl? Edward warns that the harvest delivery is creeping up fast, but out in that remote settlement, preparing it takes forever. Julius, give me just a second, then he turns to Sir Edward and orders him to move exactly as planned, because even out here in the wilderness, they're sitting right next to the Western Kingdom, and this spot is pure strategic gold. Julius is dead sure that no matter what happens, that territory has to be fully under their control. No exceptions. Julius tells Edward to take care of the Lord the second he turns into a problem, then basically gives him free rein with everything else, and Edward follows every word without question. The very next day, Edward rolls up to Frandal with a court appraiser named Cedric, and Cedric snaps that this is just a normal borderland. Cedric and Edward are met by Eric, and when he steps forward, he bows low and declares he's thrilled to welcome the guests. Edward's stunned when the Lord himself steps out to greet them, then Eric casually thrusts a hand toward his estate and tells the guests to kick back like they belong there, and Edward can't help noticing how completely relaxed Eric is. He heard their harvest volumes have been falling short for ages, and now it feels like Eric could have just tossed rotten stuff into the boxes to magically hit the required numbers. Eric hustles the guests toward the boxes stacked with the harvest, and the moment Edward sees them, his eyes blow wide with pure shock. Eric jabs a finger at the harvest boxes and declares, "Right here, 5,000 units are already installed." Edward froze in shock, trying to make sense of it all. Then Eric cut in and said, "Small problem." He pointed out that the boxes had B-rank fruits mixed in, but most of them were still A-rank. Then he looked straight at Edward and asked, "You okay with that?" Edward thinks the whole thing is nonsense, but Cedric steps in, inspects the harvest, and turns to Sir Edward to say Eric isn't lying, then he shuts the doubt down hard. Cedric insists the harvest is top grade, and the appraiser can't believe it after a lifetime of judging crops. He's never laid eyes on anything this excellent. Edward can't shake the feeling this is insane because Frandal never had the money or the gear to grow a crop like that. So he keeps staring, wondering how on earth it's even possible. Cedric, besides being a researcher, can't stop wondering how they managed to grow a crop this incredible. Eric gestures at Alma and promises he'll be the one to spell out all the details. Then the guy steps up and grins, saying he's thrilled to finally meet Edward. He blurts out his name and tells the guy he belongs to his family, then makes it clear that Edward can just call him Alma. Edward ponders it, thinking that noble houses in the Eastern Empire really did carry names like that. Then Eric tells him Alma is the one advising this whole settlement. Alma corners Cedric and tells him to follow in Edward, and Cedric instantly gets it. Edward wants to scour every inch of their fields. So Alma drags Cedric and Edward out to the harvest fields, and Edward stared in disbelief. This ground was insanely fertile. Cedric just couldn't wrap his head around it. How could the soil still be alive and not drained, even after a harvest this massive? Alma says they planted these beds in the morning, then Edward and Cedric are blown away. Because they can't wrap their heads around the fact they got it done that early to them, it feels impossible. Cedric demands, "Wait, are you saying that in under a single day, this seed sprouts into something harvest ready?" Alma flips on his vol and fires off a warning during the landing. He used one super important item. Cedric's jaw drops when he realizes this isn't just any fertilizer, it's the god of fertility's own sacred supply, handed down by the deity himself, and it steers every crop's growth and quality. He explains that when you mix this fertilizer into the soil, it supercharges growth and can dramatically speed up just about any agricultural crop. Cedric grabs Alma by the shoulders, shakes her hard, and demands where she got that priceless thing. Alma just raises an eyebrow and fires back. How could an object like that be valuable? Cedric claims he's only ever seen stuff like this in books, and it instantly sparks Alma, like it's reminding her of something. Cedric lays out the legend mix any field song with his fertilizer, and it'll spit out a bountiful harvest for at least the next 100 years, and the farmers just stare, mouths hanging open, stunned. Right now, Raoul strides up to Alma and he's shocked because the guy isn't just handy, he's a seriously talented farmer too. Alma just grins and says he only had this item lying around. Then Cedric jabs his finger at the rocks lining the beds and demands, "So what are these?" And in the back of his mind, he's already convinced they're nothing but plain rocks. Alma leans in and explains magic crystals, pure, crystallized chunks of ultra-concentrated magic essence. He tells me that in the ancient days, that magic crystal was feared and worshipped as the stone of the gods, and it was the heart of all kinds of wild rituals. Alma thinks the capital scientist doesn't need lessons, yet he still points it out when you grow crops. The soil's nutrients make or break everything. A huge chunk of these substances comes straight from the earth's magical essence, tiny mana particles packed inside every lifeless thing, lurking in the ground and drifting through the air. Alma also spills this truth. The essence jumps from thing to thing, and the more concentrated it is, the bigger the harvest you'll reap. So Alma scattered magic crystals across the field, turbocharging the exact same concentration to the max. Raoul drops the act and looks genuinely shocked. Then Sonia swivels to him and tells him that the guy already heard about all of this before. Cedric clamps a hand over his mouth, stunned that they'd even think to do it that way. Alma's genius is unreal, and he can't stop wondering why no one on their side ever had the same idea. Edward can't stop thinking about the magical essence, how it's usually so thin in the soil and air that crystallization should be totally impossible in nature. He even heard that, back in the days of adventurers, crystals like these were hauled up from the deepest dungeons, right where the most vicious monsters prowl. He realizes something this rare can't possibly fuel agriculture on a mass scale, so he leans in and demands to know where that guy even got those magic crystals. Alma realizes he can't admit he stole those from the dungeon he was guarding to train his skills, so he scrambles up a cover story, claiming they're a family heirloom. He never even realized that this little thing could be worth that much until he finally understood why the harvest quality shot up and the quantity exploded. He can't shake the feeling. Something's off. This village is way too empty for the harvest it's pulling off. No way they could sow and reap those massive amounts that fast. Edward leans in and asks if Alma brought in any extra hands, and the guy shuts it down. No extra labor was hired. Alma clocks how insanely sharp Edward is, and she can't shake the feeling that he didn't rise to his post in the capital for nothing. Alma starts explaining that he told everyone not to reveal himself to the creatures that helped them because he's terrified the man will be absolutely stunned. Edward blurts out, "What does that mean?" while Alma lets out a sharp whistle, and the second Edward spots those animals or monsters sprinting straight toward the fields, his eyes pop wide with shock. Almatel tells him these are the very same monsters that were tearing through the fields, only now they're totally under control, and in exchange for food, they lend their muscle as a workforce. Edward demands how this could possibly be true, and Alma jabs a finger at the devil's relief, saying the monsters obey him because of it. That devilish relief showed a demon king who'd already crushed an endless stream of monsters, and the second you looked at his carved image, raw magical power surged out, pulling those creatures in and forcing them to bow. Edward leans in and demands to know, can this stone really stop monsters from ever laying a claw on people? Alma explains that nearly every monster around here can't fight off the stone's effects, and that's when it hits him. He remembers Fenrir and realizes she's different. Raoul at this moment has one of the monsters leap clean over a blazing ring of fire, then he flings his arms wide and boasts that monsters can pull off tricks like this too. Edward stares, jaws dropping at the monster's crazy stunts, and the man beside him can't help thinking, this is impossible. He was thrown into alarm when he realized that devilish relief was straight up from the demon world, and he couldn't shake the thought that their pride would never let them hand their heritage to some human so easily. He can't believe it. How did that relief even wind up in the grip of some guy from the middle of nowhere? Like the kid could have been any child at all. Alma warns him this could hit him like a truck, but she still pushes him to believe the monsters are totally under his control, yet that only makes Edward freeze in fear, and the man can't stop asking who in the hell is Alma really? Cedric wipes his tears away and blurts, this is all incredible, stunned that Alma can dream up a plan to subdue monsters and turn them into a working force. Cedric is convinced this will be the perfect fix for the border zones, where the people are few and far between. Alma locks eyes with Cedric and can't help wondering if every appraiser is this damn sentimental. Cedric snaps his head to Edward and fires off the question, what does he think about all this? Edward leans in and says, Cedric's right. Because Frandel was just some plain borderland a few days ago, and now it's been completely transformed. Edward tells everyone he needs to rush this to his supervisor right now. Right then, Sonia steps up and asks them straight, will her father stay? Lord Cedric rushes in to calm her down, telling her she has nothing to fear because as a court appraiser, he'll push the lands forward like a shining role model, doing everything in his power. The guy swears that if things go right, they'll finally boost funding for the lands. Then Cedric and Edward pile into the carriage and ride back. Raoul grins like they actually pulled it off, and Alma's glowing right along with him. Then Raoul turns to the man and declares that Eric is a genuinely good man too. Eric can't take it in. He breaks down in tears and blurts that just a couple days ago, he was ready to walk out on his post and abandon his people. Then he looks at Alma and thanks her for everything. Sonia strides up to the guy and blurts out that Alma is unreal, and she still can't wrap her head around how he pulled off a full turnaround in just 3 days. Right then, Luna slides in and tells her that Alma is nothing like anyone else, and Sonia just stands there, totally lost on what her sister is talking about. Luna snaps around to her sister and says Alma is nothing like the people who came to help them. Sonia let go of his head, and just like that, he releases him and agrees. At that moment, Alma couldn't shake the weird feeling everything looked perfect, yet somehow, disaster clung to the air, and he started to wonder if he'd messed up somewhere along the way. As the carriage rattled along, Cedric leaned in and swore to Edward that Frandel was unmatched. Then he admitted straight up that he never imagined these lands were this advanced until he saw them with his own eyes, and Edward nodded right along with the appraiser. A week has already blown past since Sir Edward and Cedric rode out, and everything in the settlement lands has shifted hard, Alma, with monsters lending a hand, hauled the roads back together and repaired a pile of houses. Alma and Luna heard furious barking. Then the boy ducked his head and spotted a wolf cub, hauled the cart right on over, and his grandmother rewarded him for it. Alma realizes everyone's already grown used to the monsters, even though fear used to grip them the first time they showed up. Elma strides up to the old man and slaps her vault to life, then he steps in, using that vault to keep the crops watered and thriving. The old man whips around to Alma and demands, "Can you really pull from that storage tank as much water as you want?" Alma snaps back that it's not true at all. Then he explains, in plain terms, that the size of his storage lives and dies by how much mana he has, so the limit is real. Suddenly, the boy hears someone shout that it isn't fair, then he whips around and spots Luna standing there. Luna shot daggers at Alma. She swears that after she hauled water, her whole body screamed with pain the next day, and now she's furious because Alma just casually used magic she doesn't even understand. Sonya strides up and snaps that Luna's frail body isn't Alma's fault because Luna herself would rather curl up in her room day and night than ever step outside. Luna shoots back that she's been doing a deep, proper study of magic. Then Sonya goes, "So that's why you can't use magic." Luna just presses the point again. She even struggles to find her way home. Raoul tried to soothe them, yet he still agreed Alma's magic was a total scam. The boy stewed on it for a second, then spun around and demanded to know why Luna wasn't training. He even figured he could teach her how to use the vault. Luna leads Alma straight to her room, ushers her inside, and then heads to her own bed. Alma glances around and her eyes widen at the massive wall of books stacked on the shelves. Heat rushes to her face as she tries to explain the sheer amount, but the guy shuts her down before she can finish. Alma kicks off the talk and tells you that mastering storage isn't about guessing. It's about nailing two conditions. First, the mana has to hit at least 1,000 units, no exceptions. Second, Luna must master the teleport spell, and yeah, that's straight up spatial magic. Luna suspects her mana capacity is about to shift right now. She's sitting at only 600 units, so she knows she has to crank it up by 400 units first. Luna whirls around, ready to bolt from the room, but then she blurts that she has to head into the forest for a while to take down some monsters until Alma lunges in front of her and stops her. He's convinced this route will take forever, so he blurts out, "Let's take the long way detour." And the girl shoots back, "Wait, what does that even mean?" The guy dives into the storage, pulls out a golden apple that only grows in the sacred arena, and bites it, then declares that if Luna grabs it, her mana instantly jumps by 500 units. Luna blurts out, "Can I really eat it?" And the guy fires back, asking if she's embarrassed that the apple is golden. Then he adds, "If you don't want it, we'll have to come up with another way." Luna grabs the apple, says she trusts the guy, bites in, and suddenly her eyes light up like, "This is insanely tasty." She keeps chewing because it tastes sweet and juicy to her. The girl swears that sweet with a little bite makes perfect harmony, lingering right on your tongue, and Alma gets it instantly because he's eaten those same apples himself. Alma snapped back to what she knew the golden apple could pump the mana up to 2,500 units max, and when he turned to the girl, he didn't dare slow her down. Luna shot her hand up and blurted that a brand new power was starting to boil inside her body. Then the guy grinned and said, "That's amazing," because her mana was finally surging higher. Luna strides up to him and demands another apple, and when he sees the shift in her attitude, he panics and blurts that she'll have to eat it later. Alma decides they're finally going to step onto the teleporter, and Luna shoots back, "Wait, is that the same one the boy used?" The girl spills the story of a book she read about teleportation, and she remembers it was all about a slice of spatial magic that never made it to their era. She also knew spatial magic was rare and brutally hard to master, so her nerves were buzzing like crazy. Alma keeps thinking that book info can't always be trusted, and he knows the real nightmare of learning isn't the studying at all. It's hunting down material you can actually rely on. Alma says that if a girl wants to use spatial magic, she'd better be fully locked in on every inch of space around her. He snapped that teleportation isn't just some trick. It's a spell that yanks a magical entity from one chosen point straight to another. The girl leaned in, hanging on every word, and then she grilled him. So that's what Alma meant. We need a place that feels like the moon. He nodded and confirmed it. Alma tells them this, when you drag your magical essence through space, the stretch from point A to the exact spot B bends straight into nothing, then snaps right back to how it was. Alma tells him, the spell's secret is simple. You've got to slide your own body from one fixed point to the other in a blink of time. Alma's convinced the real secret of teleportation is this: if you can picture the shift in your mind, you can make it happen. The girl started waving her hands like, "I got it, I understand everything," even though she looked like her brain was overloaded with all that information. Then she shot the guy a confident grin and swore she could handle it. And Alma just praised Luna. Luna shoots the boy a look and asks him to show the process for real. And Alma quickly says they should start by moving just a short distance first. He darts forward and demands to know if she remembers. Then Luna snaps, "Move again." And he does. Sonya bursts into the room, declares the tea's ready, and urges Alma and Luna to take a break together. Right then, Alma started pacing back and forth, and he demanded that the girl take him to Luna's room, so Sangya snapped, "What's happening?" Alma plops into the chair, grabs her cup of tea and sips, then asks if Luna's finally making any progress. And he reassures her that if she doesn't nail it this second, nothing awful is going to happen, because they've got all the time in the world. He sips his tea, nods like he's figured something out, and tells Luna her magic sense is spot on. She just needs a little time to start landing the moves. Alma snaps back to his past life and remembers how brutal it was to finally master this spell, and he tells Luna that the real key is patience. Then Luna nods and says she finally gets it all. The girl actually teleported. Alma freezes in shock, and then Luna fires off, "Wait, you really pulled it off." Alma couldn't believe her eyes when that girl nailed teleportation almost instantly after only seeing it once. Alma stared at Luna and thought, with your magic sense and that sage skill, you're going to grow into a terrifying magician one day. I hand the girl a cup of tea and tell her we've got to fix the storage next. Then I warn her she'll have to start practicing teleporting because I swear she'll master it in no time. Luna beamed at what just happened, and when Alma noticed her cheeks flush, he couldn't help it. He found it adorable that she truly, really liked magic. Alma can't believe it. Luna is picking up magic faster than anyone her age, even faster than Alma expected. The girl admits she didn't mean to mention it because she's been learning spells even before she earned her skill. Luna tells us her great-grandfather was a legendary wizard in the kingdom, so he left a mountain of magic books in the house, and as a kid, she couldn't get enough of them. Alma leans in and snaps that the girl's love hasn't faded one bit. Meanwhile, Luna jerks her gaze away, cheeks blazing red. Luna leans in and tells us her family used to live in the capital until her father was sick of the endless brawls between the aristocrats, so he made the call for their safety. They packed up and moved to the lands their family had owned for generations. When Alma hears the aristocrats clashing, his thoughts snap straight to his own family, and he instantly realizes Luna's people are getting crushed by the same kind of trouble. Luna kept going, telling them how the locals welcomed them with open arms, then even rolled up their sleeves to help them build a house, so nobody would have to sleep under the stars, and they treated her kind father's words like law. That's why Luna vowed to give the people of those lands the same kindness back. She tells everyone how thankful she is to Alma, the Kai of Olitacha. Then she grins and says once the storage is in place, she'll be able to do even more for everyone. Alma still remembers how Luna always calls him a cheater, but he swears the real cheat is the girl's killer smile. Alma knows that once this whole area's infrastructure is fully repaired and Luna finally masters magic, she'll handle every problem on her own even if he isn't there to help. Alma's heart sinks, but he insists it's for the best this way. The settlement won't end up depending on Alma alone. Suddenly, the boy jolts at a thunderous noise. He whips around and Luna demands what just happened. Alma says it came from outside, so Luna fires back asking what the sound is, and before long, they decide to rush outside together. Alma steps up to Luna's sister and demands to know what's going on. Then Sanya swings around to explain, only to get cut off mid-sentence without warning. The knights snap to their eyes to Eric, Lord of Frandal, begging him to stop fighting and just come with them, while Eric stared in shock, burning with questions about what had happened and why they were trying to take him. The knights caught the truth and told the man he'd been taken because he was using monsters for his own selfish power. Then everyone stared at the knights, stunned out of their minds. One of the knights snaps that the man has to come with them right now, straight to the capital because they're hauling him in for a treason trial. 3 days had dragged by since Mr. Eric was hauled to the capital, and meanwhile, Alma, Luna, and Raul kept the monsters fed Sanya too, sitting right by the food bowl where the wolf cubs were chowing down. Alma suddenly pops up beside the girl and tells her, "Don't worry, everything's going to be fine." The girl whips around just in time to see wolf cubs tumbling and bouncing around the guy. Alma figures Eerie would have already spilled the truth if anything serious went down, and he's convinced the knights are just trying to get the mess under control. Sonia swears her father is innocent, and then Alma leans in, telling the girl that Eric only needs to stand up for himself, nothing more. Sonia nods along, fully backing him. She's convinced she has to stay strong, protect these lands, because her father isn't there. Sonia snaps herself on the cheeks to shake off the gloom, and when Alma, Raul, and Luna smile back, Raul finally lets out a breath. He'd been worried sick, because Sonia had been down for 3 whole days, and now indignation flares in her. Right then, Alma snaps to it. Someone's talking about wounds. The man wheels around and sees a brutal sight, ragged clothes, and his face smashed up with bruises. The settlers demanded to know what happened to him, and the man snapped back that the king's knights ambushed him in the forest. Then he figured those knights were trying to grab the lands while Lord Eric was gone. Alma's gut feeling wasn't wrong, because now he's terrified about the knights creeping into the forest. Alma studied the man's face and instantly remembered he claimed knights attacked him, but the wounds didn't look like sword cuts at all. To her, they screamed nails, not steel, and when she looked closer, she spotted powder sprinkled on his clothes. The man grabs one of the settlers and demands help, then blurts that his wife and daughter are stranded out in the forest. Elma nods instantly and vows that she, Raul, and Luna will charge into the forest to check everything, while the guy whips around and tells Sonia to bandage the man's wounds. Sonia growls back that she'll do everything in her power. Alma, Raul, and Luna push through the forest, and the boy blurts that it was probably nothing but an illusion. Ro blurts out, "What kind of illusion is this?" And Alma tells him the truth. There's a monster out there that blankets its victims in powder, and with it comes the face of their worst fears. Alma realizes the locals fear one thing more than anything when those royal soldiers step onto their land. Alma can't believe this guy marched into the forest to hunt dangerous monsters and even dragged his family along with him. Raul blurts that they finally found the man's mom and daughter Kakun dangling from a tree branch. Luna blurts out that knights have shown up too, and Raul snaps into a fighting stance, demanding to know if this insane sight is really just a hallucination. Alma yells at Raul to spin around and look to the right. He snaps in time to block, but Fenrir slams into him with another attack. Raul stared at the she-wolf in sheer panic, completely baffled as to why she chose to come after him. Raul blurts out, "What if this is just another hallucination?" And Alma fires back, insisting that Luna and Raul are still rattled by that wolf. Raul shoots back, asking if illusions can actually hurt him, and Alma answers with the hard truth they can. Raul and Alma crane their heads down and spot magical stones scattered across the ground. Alma instantly suspects the enemy is striking from beneath, hiding behind illusions. Raul hoists his sword again and demands, "So you're saying we really can't just ignore our attacks?" Alma shuts it down instantly. "No, we're fighting. Then he stares ahead and snaps in surprise when he spots his father's figure standing among the knights. Alma can't believe the powder's power, because it lays bare a person's deepest fears. He's convinced it's working exactly the way it's supposed to. And of course, it was his father, the one he'd been terrified to see the most. Luna snapped into a fighting stance, and Raul stood right beside her, bracing for the clash. Then he demanded that someone hit him. Raul slammed his blade down and started turning every attack aside, while Luna cracked her magic wide open and Alma stepped in to join the fight too. Alma realized the illusion couldn't steal the original skills, so the boy snapped and decided to attack the problem with research magic. He figured the enemy had vanished on purpose, hiding his location, but with the magical sensor humming, Alma could still track him down. Alma locked onto the enemy and unleashed her top-tier wind magic, Super Hurricane. It tore through the air and shattered every illusion in its path, and when Raul Luna saw it, he was blown away by Alma's sheer power. The very next second, Alma yells at Raul to look up. Raul snaps his gaze upward and spots it, a monster, half like us and half like an insect, coming in to attack him. Raul rockets upward and slams into the monster, and Luna snaps her eyes shut as magic flares. Alma then spots the truth when she sees Raul landed on a tree branch after the hit. Raul, Luna, and Alma fought their way through the forest and rescued a wounded man's mother and daughter, then hauled them safely back. Raul finally felt the weight lift, thinking it was over. Then Alma's smile vanished as she snapped, "No, it's not over yet." The boy whips around to the man and demands, "So the three of us really tried to escape from Frandel, right?" The man's eyes snap wide with shock. Sonya and Luna whip their heads around too, staring at him as he bows his head, and in a heartbeat, sadness floods over him. Luna blurts out, "So what does all this mean?" And Alma shoots back that the man and his family chose the deadly forest over the safe road. Then he adds, "Right away, he got it, because the royal knights were hiding in the illusions." The man snaps that the great sage Julius is the one to blame for it all. Then Luna leans in, hanging on his every word, while he insists that, on his own initiative, Mr. Eric got accused of treason. Alma blurts, "Who is Mr. Julius?" And the man answers with a grin, "Julius is the kingdom's greatest magician, and his power is almost as strong as the king's. Julius is the cold-blooded, ruthless prime minister who crushes any threat to the state without blinking." The man breaks the news about Julius, who just beheaded a feudal lord because everyone swore the guy was taking bribes, and then he swears Julius crushed a rebellion in the feud in just a couple of days. Sonya slaps her palm to her chest, spins around, and stares at her sister, who's staring at the ground with a heartbreak-filled slump. Right now, the man insists Alma isn't local, so he doubts the other guy can even grasp his worries, but fear gnaws at him because once soldiers march into the settlement, he doesn't know what'll happen to him and his family. The man admits he'd always believed using monsters was a terrible mistake, and when Alma stares at him, complete shock wipes the expression right off her face. Right then, Sonya suddenly blares a scream, demanding what the man's even saying because when their earlier problem got solved, he went silent. Didn't he? But the second danger reared its head, he instantly dumped every ounce of blame onto Alma. Alma whirls back to calm Sonya, but Sonya keeps going, pressing her to ask if that man remembers what his father told him. Sonya leans in and tells him, "If you put your trust in someone, that's on you, no one else." And all the settlers just stare at the girl in stunned silence. Right then, Alma steps up and thanks her, and the guy makes the girl believe he's totally fine. Sonya starts to speak again, but the guy slams over her words and insists people aren't anything more than terrified. Alma figured that if the man was telling the truth, he'd rush straight to the capital and clear Mr. Eric's name. Then her gut told her that abandoning the settlement lands in that kind of chaos was way too dangerous. Alma chose to steady the villagers first, then the guy slapped his hand to his chest, admitted he was behind what happened, and promised them that if an army ever showed up, he'd make sure no one in the settlement got hurt. The boy pleads with every villager for just a little time, and for a tense tense moment, they go stone silent, heads bowed, like they're bracing for what comes next. Raoul stalks up to Alma and fires off. So, what are you planning? Then he can't help but wonder, are you really about to take on the entire army? Alma tilts her gaze upward and snaps that they've got to brace for a solid defense, something that will at least cool everyone down. Raoul blurts out how they're even supposed to pull this off, and Alma shoots back that she's got plans already brewing in her head. Alma storms out and tells everyone he'll be gone for a while, then orders Raoul and Luna to take care of the crew, but Raoul doesn't even get a word out, and the girls just stand there, watching Alma disappear. Edward stormed into the kingdom, and straight in a meeting with the great sage, he started firing off every magical item Alma had shown him during the harvest assessment. Edward was convinced the fertility god's fertilizer, magic crystals, and devil's relief were far too priceless to hand over to some lowly border lord. He figured Alma was tied to the Empire and that she was hiding demon relics. Edward slips his real fears into the shadows. Frandel is secretly teaming up with the Empire, or maybe something far worse, like one of the greater demons. Julius tells Edward to stop jumping to conclusions, and the man agrees. Then he asks what they're supposed to do about Eric, and the man explains Eric didn't resist arrest at all. He just insisted he was innocent. Julius mulled it over, then demanded, "Eric, are you the very Lord Frandel?" Right after, he snapped orders. "Edward, hand Eric everything he needs. He's our bait." Edward fires off the question, "Is Eric really just a decoy?" And Julius nods, confirming it, then grins. "We've got one last step left in our plan." Outside, night had fully swallowed the world. Everyone slept soundly in their beds except Luna, who had slipped out of the estate. Luna tried to slip away late at night when a man's voice snapped. Asking where she was headed so late, she spun around and froze, only to see her sister, Sonia and Raoul, demanding, "Where are you going?" Luna's eyes went wide when her sister and Raoul showed up. She swore they'd already fallen asleep in their beds, but Sonia cut that out fast and insisted they weren't asleep at all. Sonia says she saw her sister acting weird, and the second Luna heard the great mage's name, gloom swallowed her whole. Sonia figured Luna had shut herself off inside. Luna stiffens up, drops her head, and lets the tension hit. Sonia swears Luna was trying to take Julius on by herself and immediately assumes she's cooked up some really dumb idea. Suddenly, Luna rockets off and bolts into the distance, and Sonia and Raoul scramble to keep up. Sonia even shouts, "Why are you running?" as Luna presses on ahead, refusing to stop while her sister keeps trying to grab her and pull her back. Luna comes to a stop by a little house, and Raoul and Sonia rush up right behind her. Then Raoul snaps, "She's got barely any stamina." Luna shoots him a look and tells him she only ran into Julius once at her gift ceremony. The girl still remembers the priest who told her she had the gift of the sage, and in that instant, pure joy hit her like lightning, while everyone around her erupted in screaming delight. Luna remembers Julius popping up right behind her, and her eyes fly open with shock. Then the man steps forward and tells her his name. Everyone instantly recognized the great sage. Then Julius leaned in and told the girl, "You've got talent buried deep inside you." She stared at him, holding her breath, waiting for the next words. Julius stepped closer and said he'd join him. And the man only smiled as he promised her, "I'll give you everything you want." Right now, Luna has made up her mind she's heading straight for the capital, because she's convinced it's the only shot she has to save her father. Sonia blurts out, "Wait, what does that even mean?" And her worry hits hard. Does Luna really think my dad will be happy about a rescue like this? Luna dips her head and blurts out that she's got this, so she tells Raoul and Sonia to stay out of her way. Then, out of nowhere, she hurls her magic and unleashes the spell, Ball Lightning. Sonia realized the girl had fired a bolt of ball lightning straight into the ground to scorch their vision, so she immediately screamed at Raoul to do something. Right now, the guy ends up right near the moon, frozen in a fighting stance. Then Raoul instantly clocks it. The girl's gone to blind them, but her footsteps keep ringing in his ears. Luna rushed in and apologized to Dork, then swore she'd come back and help fix everything, while Raoul stood there totally lost, like, "Wait, what are you even talking about?" In the next heartbeat, the moon swings around and slams the house. Crash, it collapses in seconds, and the guy gets buried under bricks before tumbling to the ground, completely crushed and beaten. Luna sprints to the capital, and back at the house, her sister locks eyes with Raoul and blurts that Luna knew the roof was weak. Raoul shoots his hand up, suddenly realizing the girl had the upper hand since she knew the area. Luna stared at the gate, ready to slip past and see what lay beyond their lands. Then a bag of seeds screamed toward her out of nowhere, the heavenly tree's own seeds. They burst apart, and in an instant, trees erupted straight in front of her. Luna spun around, and there was Raoul. Right then, Sonia burst up beside her and warned, "She's got nowhere left to go, because we've got her boxed in by these trees." Sonia asks Luna, tells them to stop and just quit because they're going to have to wait until Alma comes back. Luna suddenly remembers something huge, drops her head, and tells them they'll have to wait. Really wait for Alma. Sonia demands what any of this is supposed to mean, and Luna shoots back that she'll have to thank Alma for it. Luna whips around to her sister and declares she's leaving the village to her, then slams the teleporter. Poof, she vanishes into thin air. Sanya clocks it instantly. The girl just fired up her magic again. She remembers Alma's lessons, where Luna could barely slide even a few centimeters. Raul blurts that Luna is a genius, and Sanya snaps at him with pure fury, so he turns his head away and shoots back. What are we even doing? He mutters that the forest is pitch black, which means hunting around in there isn't happening. Sanya dips her head and says her sister hasn't changed one bit, and Raul immediately shoots back. What do you mean? She lifts her chin, eyes burning, and promises that if Luna decides something, she'll back her to the very end no matter what anyone else says. Sonia still remembers Luna telling her, "You can trust Mr. Alma," and how Luna snapped at her sister right after. Even now, Edward was still stuck in the same office with Julius, and they were firing back and forth, hammering out their next move. Julius snatches the magic stone, then demands the name of the man who saved the settlement. Edward leans in and asks if the man means that kid, the one who passed rare artifacts to the Border Lord. Then Edward goes, "Wait, I remember now," and names him Alma, along with his last name. Morning hit, and Alma suddenly found Fenrir right there on a cliff's edge. Fenrir stood like she'd been placed, perfectly calm, and the guy swore the wolf had been hiding her presence flawlessly. He'd been hunting for her for ages, and now she was finally right in front of him. Fenrir whips around and snaps that this guy barely ever shows up. Alma nods along, and then she reveals he's cooked up a way for the she-wolf to repay him. Fenrir locks eyes with Alma, hooked by what he's about to hear, then holds his breath for the next words while Alma grins and tells the she-wolf, "Come on, fight me." Fenrir demanded to know if she truly had to fight, and the boy snapped back yes this time. The wolf would need every last ounce of power, because it had to be fought like her life depended on it. Fenrir snaps that he doesn't get the point of this at all, and the boy just stares at the she-wolf, waiting for her to say the next thing. Fenrir snaps her head aside and lets out a heavy sigh. No, she won't deny she owes Alma a favor, but she's sure a fight to the death would be way too far. The she-wolf snaps that she's been unable to find her son since morning, then tells the boy to come back another time. Alma blurts out an apology, then he snaps his gaze up and admits he has no choice. Fenrir studies the boy with sharp suspicion. Right then, a boulder rips down from the top of a towering mountain and the boy launches into his magic. Fenrir shoots him a question, demanding to know what he's doing, because she refuses to believe he's clueless. She's sure there's a reason he's starting a fight, so she pushes for an answer. Alma tells him they dragged Mr. Eric all the way to the capital and he can't stop thinking about it. The she-wolf lives right next to people, so he figures she's already heard every word. Fenrir locks in his claim and tells her she heard Eric was accused of hunting up monsters for the rebellion. Alma drops her head and admits it. This whole capture happened because of his fault, and now he's convinced she'll have to prove his innocence somehow, so he's been wrestling with a plan for ages. He weighs his choices for a heartbeat, then commits he'll haul a rare baby monster all the way to the capital and hand it to the king to prove, loud and clear, that he's loyal. The wolf stiffens, then she snaps, asking how the boy can take her cub. He throws his arms wide and claims he's just weighing options, and he fires back. Is that a reason to fight? The she-wolf snaps that she's too old, so Alma figures he just didn't hear her. Right then she growls it again, claiming she's aging out because she couldn't sense that boy's vicious heart. Fenrir vanished out of nowhere, and Alma scrambles to track where the wolf went. Then he's suddenly behind her, slamming in strikes back to back, while dust explodes into the air and blinds everything. As the dust settles, the wolf finally clocks it. Alma didn't take a scratch from her hip, and that's when she's stunned, because she totally caught the boy off guard. Alma unleashed search magic and defense magic at once, and boom, she forged a magical barrier that held firm. Then he unleashed his deadliest wind magic, storm summoning, and a monster storm tore through the sky, scorching a massive trail behind it. Alma understood every last bit of it, and he realized the wolf could leap straight into the shadows. He figures she-wolf slipped his attack, springing from one shadow to the next because for a split second he truly believed he'd slam her right on the spot. Right now, she can't believe it. Alma's mana level is simply unreal. Fenrir studies her powers and Alma's is too, then she realizes plain as day if she clashes with him head on, she's going to get crushed. The wolf finally admits it. That boy is a monster of a mage. Alma tried to read the wolf's next move, but Fenrir slammed down the Shadow Eater spell. Then a tiny shadow beast crawled out of the darkness. A shadow beast slipped up right behind the guy and swung only for its attack to fizzle out the moment the barrier snapped into place. Alma lunged aside as the guy stared, stuck because he couldn't figure out which shadow the beast would strike from next. With the shadow beast chewing up his focus, a she-wolf lunged for him, and the moment he clocked her, he realized she was way more cautious than he'd expected. She struck, using nothing but shadows, then slipped aside before he could land a hit. Alma tried to read the wolf's next move, but the only thing standing in the way was the magical barrier he'd built himself, crafted using a mix of search magic and defensive magic to get exactly what he needed. That barrier spots the enemy on the spot, figures out the damage it'll deal, and pinpoints where the next hits will land. This spell so wildly complex it guzzles mana like crazy. Alma knew he couldn't hold that barrier forever. His only real weapon here was magic, because when it came to brute strength, the she-wolf was on another level entirely. Alma figured that the she-wolf was buying time by grinding him down, so she knew he had to claw his advantage back fast. Alma unleashed physical strength magic, then cranked it up, boosting his strength, stamina, agility, and reaction speed to insane levels. The wolf stared at the boy in pure shock because he wasn't just thinking, he was ramping up acceleration, evasion, resistance enhancement, and durability enhancement, plus boosting his vision and sharpening his perception to the max. The she-wolf stared in shock as the guy fired off several spells back to back, and every single one was powered by magic that physically supercharged his strength. A shadow beast lunged at Alma with full fury, but the boy snapped back and fought it off. Then the remaining shadow beasts lunged at him one after another, but they all crashed and burned because he fought them off every single time. Alma spun toward the wolf and demanded, "Is it time for me to jump into this fight?" The wolf pushed back, asking if she'd really prove how serious she was, and Alma fired back, "Did I show you my full power yet?" The she-wolf sized him up and knew he was different. Then she couldn't believe he handled her army of shadows with that kind of ease. But Fenrir had bought them the time they needed, and Alma couldn't grasp why. Then Fenrir spun around and saw the sun already sinking past the horizon. Right now, the she-wolf bares her teeth with a predatory grin and declares that her kingdom's time is about to begin. They say Fenrir, when the world hits its final day, will tear the moon and sun apart, like they're snacks, and she'll rule the dark with absolute power. The boy sensed Fenrir closing in then. Out of nowhere, his barrier got smashed to pieces, and he only realized what hit him when it was already too late. Alma realized it wasn't about speed at all. Fenrir slipped through the shadows until Alma was right in reach, and then it hit an attack you couldn't dodge. That's Fenrir's true gift, Shadow of Death. Alma sprinted, but Fenrir barked that running was pointless as she started to reel him in. Alma unleashed her magic and flashed Fenrir blind, but the boy slammed out, extending radiance. And it did nothing. Fenrir shrugged it off like it was air, and Alma snapped that his resistance is completely useless. Suddenly, Alma whips around and swings her hand. Fenrir doesn't even get it yet. The boy unleashes the Earth's deadliest magic volcanic stone. Alma crouches beside the blasted rocks, praying that hit landed until Fenrir's voice cuts through the chaos, revealing the truth that light wasn't meant to destroy her, it was meant to blind her. Fenrir lunges at the guy, but Alma's barrier splinters. He throws his hands up to shield himself, then rockets forward again, and the she-wolf snaps that he's just wasting his efforts. Fenrir smiles in the shadows and claims she can hop from place to place in an instant while the boy scrambles to strike. Then she fires back, so are Alma's efforts totally pointless. The boy whips around, folds his arms tight, and blasts wind magic, casting air jump to launch himself forward. Alma shoots up, and the wolf glares like it wants to tear him apart. Calling this move pure stupidity, she snaps back, asking if he really thinks her shadows won't catch him in the air because she owns every shred of darkness in the world, and there's nowhere for him to run. The she-wolf snarls that this is the end for Alma, then drags her up and swears she'll beat that man until he finally spills where her son is. Alma holds her breath for the perfect moment, then gasps that something has opened, and she's stunned as she feels it surge at him. "What does it mean?" she demands. Alma jabs a finger at Fenrir and grins because if he hadn't been sure he'd win, he never would have kicked off the fight. The wolf's eyes get shredded by the blazing light, and she can't wrap her head around where it even came from. Alma tells everyone he can't stretch this fight for long, no matter what reasons he throws out. The wolf scoffs at it because the sun is way past the horizon until she spots it. The sun started creeping across the sky again. The she-wolf spots something off Madoki Peak, a monster that hides its giant body as a mountain, then drags clueless travelers straight into its mouth. Fenrir realizes Alma didn't summon a miracle at all. She conjured a monster wearing a mountain mask, and now Fenrir can't shake the thought. Did Alma somehow plan and prepare for this ahead of time? She finally clocks it. Alma buried his true feelings and baited her just to draw them out. She snapped the moment into action, wheeled around to slip back into the shadows, but Alma grabbed the plan and warned her she couldn't escape through the air. The boy thrust his hand forward and shouted sealing magic, then snapped out the immobile chain spell and latched Fenrir down hard, watching the wolf crash to the ground, trapped and unable to move. Fenrir finally bows to defeat, yet even knowing she has no right to ask Alma for anything, she still pleads for him to pick her over his own son. Then bam! One of the wolf cubs speaks up, voicing his herd. He's got no doubts he worships Alma because he watched him crush his own mother, the ruler of the mountains. The cub lifts a paw and declares it straight. This boy's power matches the monster's strength. Fenrir's eyes fly wide with shock as she blurts, "What is all this supposed to mean?" Then the rest of the monsters surge out of the forest. Fenrir snapped to attention and realized every monster was staring at the whole fight. Alma said it plain he lost, so the ruler of these mountains now belongs to him. Then the wolf shot back. "So what does that even mean?" Fenrir snarls, asking if Alma really dragged all this just for the wolf cub. Then Alma tells him the wolf cub taught her the truth. Fenrir is treated like the mistress of the mountains. Alma lays out everything in plain words, begs him to hide, and the wolf cub lights up like he's already loving every second of this fight. Fenrir fires the question, why did Alma do all this? Alma shoots back that he could have just used his right to ask. Then Alma leans in and says, if I let him do that, he'd have had to wrestle for proof of his authority among the monsters for ages. Alma insists that the only way to earn recognition is to crush the ruler on the throne right now, and he swears that the fastest road to victory. Fenrir keeps replaying Alma's words, take the wolf cub to the capital to prove loyalty to the king, and realizes the boy was only trying to needle her. Still, Fenrir admits it, sometimes he genuinely can't figure the kid out. Alma drops to her knees before Fenrir and blurts out an apology because he was chasing power to defend the territory, and that's why he kept pushing, testing the wolf's trust and the truth behind its feelings. Alma snaps that he doesn't deserve forgiveness, so he vows to pay the debt back the right way one day, and until then, he'll swallow every ounce of Fenrir's fury. Fenrir stared at her own massive size, thinking about how rough things were for her with Alma, and then she asked herself, what am I even supposed to do about that guy? Elmo tilts his head and blurts out what it means. Fenrir growls that the kid just flexed his power for the forest monsters, so he can't just bow to the wolf like that. She ropes the boy into becoming a role model, and Alma stares at the she-wolf, completely blown away. Fenrir flashes a grin, convinced she'd clocked the truth about the guy all along, then she loudly declares Alma the Lord of the Mountains. He shares a thankful smile at the she-wolf, then nods. Everything is set, and it's finally go time. The wolf snaps his head toward Alma and tells her he's got a request. Alma just asks, what is it? The wolf demands the boy hand over every name, then Alma fires back. Why do monsters even need names? Fenrir orders the boy to name her and her son, then rages that they've turned into her servants, so she demands a symbol to seal the deal. She insists this is her request. Alma stares at the wolf, totally lost at first, then breaks into a grin, and the wolf agrees but makes it clear he's not promising those names will be any good. 2 days had already slammed by since Luna vanished from Frandel. Alma still hadn't come back, and the army wasn't anywhere in sight. Raoul and Sanya sat by the gate, and the boy stared at her, his heart sinking when he caught her dejected look. Then he dropped his head, shut his eyes, and silently prayed that Alma would come back soon. Then Alma's voice cuts through the air apologizing, saying she was a little late, and the boy whips around, grinning because his friend is finally back. Then terror hits him when he realizes the guy's body has been ripped straight into the she-wolf's jaws. So the astro hits, and the guy instantly decides the she-wolf must have wiped out Alma for good. Sanya stared at Alma and the she-wolf, dread punching through her chest. Then Alma snapped his head around and told Raoul and Sanya, look closer. They did, and the moment they saw the other monsters up close, pure shock hit them. Suddenly, a wolf cub bursts out and spills the story of how Alma fought his mother and won somehow. The wolf cub declares that Alma rules these mountains and forests now, and every single monster bows to him. Raoul couldn't believe his eyes. The wolf just got beaten by Alma, and he snapped his head toward the boy like, this is all wildly strange, isn't it? Then it hits Raoul like a punch somehow. He understood the wolf cubs while he was talking to, so he blurts out, wait, how did that happen? Alma leaned in and told him she'd given the she-wolf and her son a second name boom. The telepathy snapped way stronger. Raoul immediately shot back. So what second name did you give them? Alma tells him that monsters with a second name are born in this world only once in a blue moon, and compared to their nameless counterparts, they're way stronger and sharp enough to outthink everyone. He explains that with the naming spell in hand, you can force a monster to take on a brand new second name. Raoul strides up to the boar and gently pets it. Then he leans in and says, look closer. Something's changed in these boars and wolves, and I can feel it. Emma insists, one lone boar is all it takes to wipe out the adventurer B-Ring, while Raoul is absolutely terrified. Alma throws his arms wide and declares he burned every last ounce of strength just to name every monster in the forest, and the wolf snaps back that even Alma can't keep running once his mana runs dry. Raoul can't believe it. Alma just named every monster in that forest, and she claims there are 30,000 of them. Raoul figures he'll leave 564 monsters behind to guard the village. Alma tells him, you've already named every monster, now you can track where they are and what's happening to them. Anytime and anywhere. Raoul couldn't believe his eyes. Monsters were everywhere in that forest, and he swore nothing could shock him ever again. Al-Levin insists, the real question is simple, can the villagers trust the monsters? Because it was the monsters who kicked off all of it in the first place. Right then, the villagers rush in and tell Alma she has nothing to fear. She looks them over and realizes they've shown up armed, with dishes strapped to their bodies like armor. The guy in front confesses that he's been chewing on Masani's words for days now, especially the part where he realizes they carry responsibility too. The man swivels to Mr. Alma and declares, every villager is going to fight too. He promises they'll stand their ground against the royal soldiers and keep watch until Mr. Eric comes back. turning Alma's surprise into something warm and genuinely delighted. Raoul laces his fingers behind his head and tells the girl she nailed it. Then he's blown away when her words hit the villagers so hard they're willing to take on the royal guards just to save their land. Alma shuts up behind her and says the piers here are perfect. Great land, and the boy nods along without a second thought. Suddenly, the man spots the she-wolf and fear hits him like a punch. Fenrir fires back, asking if it's already too late to be blown away by her sudden appearance, and the man, he's rocked because the real shock isn't just seeing her, it's hearing her talk. Alma grabs everyone's attention and declares that, as long as he's in the capital, the settlement's territory will be under Felnit's care then. The she-wolf snaps to attention and obeys her new master. Fel now, the wolf cub's name bursts forward, lifts his paw high, and declares that he's accepted the Lord's command too. Alma can't believe it. He hasn't burned through his whole mana stash like this in ages, and the last time was back in his past life. Alma decides to check his skills, then opens the system and watches his mana reserve hit 0. He still remembers the exact stats from his past life, barely leveling up near the end, so much so that he can rattle off his skill level from memory like it's etched into his bones. Alma spots something off with a skill indicator and it jolts his curiosity. One skill suddenly drops to level 1, while every other indicator stays exactly the same as he remembers. Only one skill hit level 1, and the guy immediately points out that this level isn't just some progress number, it's a clue about what's really happening. That skill rebirth snapped his memories back into place, and once he hit adulthood, the abilities from his past life came rushing in. Alma can't help but wonder if that progress indicator is actually getting carried over. She knows it's only a theory, but the possibility still crawls under her skin. Alma stares at his hands and realizes he can get stronger, he just doesn't need to push it yet. Right now in Femeria's kingdom, right in Wilhelm's capital mountains of warriors crowd the castle's training grounds, and the whole place is buzzing with battle-ready energy. Edward stared at the whole line of warriors and couldn't believe it, so many for one tiny territory. Is this way too many just to crush something so small? He asked, turning to the general Achilles. Achilles bursts into a chuckle and tells his subordinate, "You're my prime minister," then cracks another joke like it's his favorite sport. Achilles snaps that the fighters aren't really doing hero work at all. They're basically porters, again and again, because someone has to haul the alcohol, the money, and everything else straight to the capital. The man fires up Edward's faith, swearing that whatever the battlefield throws at them, even if it's packed with 10,000 soldiers, Achilles will still be unstoppable and conquer it all. Edward stares at the man and realizes this isn't empty talk at all, because Achilles isn't just any fighter, he's the god of war, the general who runs every single military operation for the whole kingdom. Edward also heard that just the other day, Achilles had wiped out an entire rebellious territory on his own, crushing its army to dust. But then, just as fast, nasty rumors started swirling about him too. Edward whirled back to the man and said, "Look, I came to the training grounds to deliver Lord Julius's message, no matter what." Then he added that his master ordered Achilles to delay the march to Frandel for a while. Rage surges in him as he snaps that Julius can crack a great joke too, but Julius refuses, and the man just smirks, saying the preparations to send the troops were finished ages ago. Suddenly, a vicious crack tears through the wall right where Achilles and Edward are standing. Then the whole thing caves in instantly. Edward snapped to attention, then realized the enemy had smashed through the outer wall, and right as Achilles spotted the newcomers, he demanded, "Who are you?" A girl stepped right up and said, "I'm Luna," claiming she traveled all the way from Frandel to meet the great sage Julius. Then she turned to Achilles and demanded, "Where is Julius?" Luna blurts, "So what letter of recommendation do I have to show?" And the knight replies that the great sage can only be reached by appointment or by handing over the right letter of recommendation. Luna can't even find the words while the knights insist everything's crystal clear, and they immediately assume Luna's just another one of Julius's fans. She knew she'd have to break the rules, so she destroyed the wall and charged through the only path that was left. The knights stared at the girl, baffled and curious. Who was she, and why did she come hunting for the great sage Julius? Luna thrusts her hands forward and roars for every knight to step aside, because if they don't, she'll end them, and the girl unleashes the deadliest wind magic storm. Night after night, her magic unleashed chaos, and then the others rose up, moving in to attack her. The girl unleashed her magic again, and the knights instantly lost her in the chaos. Then they scrambled to guess where she'd vanished. Right then, Luna slipped in from behind and slammed into the knights with an attack. Achilles bursts into laughter and declares that Luna is a genius spy. Then he turns to Edward and asks if he wants to watch. He spun around when a knight shouted his name, and right then, a fireball came screaming straight toward him. Luna thought she'd completely missed. Then her mind snapped to one chilling question: where were the casualties? Her eyes went wide when she spotted the general, smiling as he'd casually deflected her attack. She stared in disbelief as he blocked her strike with nothing but his own hands. And then Achilles marched forward, barking that every one of his knights had to scatter. The girl realized he wasn't just strong, he was on a whole other level, and the pressure rolling off him hit like a legendary sage standing right in front of her, only she knew the truth was even worse. The man's eyes raked over the girl's small frame, and he demanded she bolt because if she didn't, he wouldn't hold back. Achilles thought he could crush boredom, then he got distracted, and just like that, the girl at that moment felt the weight lift off her chest, like breathing finally got easier. One of the knights scoffs that Luna might be a kid, but she just wiped out a whole wall, so he says the knights should handle her themselves, because he doesn't swing at children, and the mood on him is downright awful. He whips around the moment he hears the girl's voice, and that's when he realizes she's already decided everything. Whatever kind of monster her enemy is, she'll smash through and win, because she's chasing the great sage and won't stop until her father is saved. The girl yanks out an apology and charges Achilles again, and then the man snaps, asking why she only ever talks about Julius. Achilles watched the girl unleash magic with no spell at all, and that's when he realized he'd better start watching every move. Luna realized her magic blasts weren't even scratching him, so she didn't waste a second. She kept her distance, knowing she had no idea what he could do next, and she blasted him with wind magic wind cutter. The man grins, secretly sure the girl couldn't match him, and when she insists on fighting, he tells her, "If you want a battle, then I'll fight you." The man hurls a boulder toward her, the girl snaps her eyes shut and vanishes into another spot, and the man freezes because that trick makes zero sense to him. Her eyes went wide as a massive storm of boulders ripped out of her. She snapped aside and kept her distance until Achilles closed in, grinning like he'd already solved her every move with each throw. She realized he was reading her perfectly, and defeat was creeping closer. One of the stones nearly crushed her until she snapped up water magic and forged a shield, then slammed the spell waterfall, and suddenly the whole pack of knights got drowned in a relentless flood. The girl figured it didn't matter how unstoppable Achilles was, once the water surged, it would smash right through his strength and drag him under. Luna's eyes pop wide with shock when she spots the man mirroring the water's flow with the wind itself. Achilles hurls the column straight at the wall, then barrels up to it and demands, "So you really thought you could hide in here, huh?" He shoves the girl toward the front door and screams for her to run because he's handing her one shot to escape. The girl couldn't stop wondering what Achilles' gift even was. She figured it had to be raw physical strength. The girl swings her hand to the side and declares that she brought the man here on purpose. Suddenly, the palace gates slam down on the man. Everyone whips their heads toward him and Luna stunned to silence. And the worst part, she did it on purpose. The man figured out the girl didn't just teleport, she could yank objects around too. Luna strode up to this man and demanded again where Julius was, while Achilles flashed a huge crooked smile. Luna steps in front of Achilles and demands to know where Julius is. Then fury explodes across his face, veins bulging, because he can't wrap his head around why she's acting so brazen. The man scoffs that she's still so young, yet she rattles off an insane number of spells. Then he declares Luna's gift is pure luck and snaps that he can't stand someone like her at all. He leans in and asks if the girl is truly itching to meet the great sage, and he's baffled. She wasn't even scared to go to Julius. Luna blurts out that she'll strike a deal with Julius, he'll trade his life for his father's, and she swears she'll fight tooth and nail for the people she loves in Frandel. Achilles shoots, "So who's your dad?" At first he's totally lost, then it clicks. Luna's father is Eric, the ruler of Frandel. The man clings to every word Edward drilled into him about Frandel. Achilles bows his head and says he gets it all now. He realizes why Julius begged to delay the campaign, because Julius is dead set on doing whatever it takes to become stronger. Achilles says he's done with the old way, time for something different. When the girl gasps, her eyes widening as she spots the changes in his body and realizes he isn't using a spell at all. The man rips apart the door that's been trapping him, then flashes a grin and says once the mysterious intruder is gone, it'll all be over in a blink. Achilles crashes through the door and rips himself free completely. Luna stared at Achilles, frozen in shock, because the door was carved from pure steel and she couldn't wrap her head around how that was even possible. She'd been sure the doors would barely be able to hold a man. Edward snaps around and locks eyes with Achilles. Yes, the god of war himself. He knows the man got the berserker gift, mana won't leave his body, but it keeps hammering his muscles and bones until he's stronger by leaps and bounds. Almost all of Achilles' relatives are magicians, and since he can't use magic at all, people cast him out. Still, those insane physical stats carried him forward, and now he's being hailed as one of the strongest martial arts masters alive. Edward couldn't help but wonder, would Achilles make it in time? The man snapped into a fighting stance, muscles tightening as he geared up to strike, pure determination burning in his eyes. Luna instantly knew she had to keep her guard up, so she teleported a massive distance away before the man could even swing at her. When he realized she'd used teleportation, he snapped upward, then vanished from the spot. Luna stared at the spot where the man had frozen in shock, and the knights couldn't believe he was gone either. Convinced Achilles might have teleported him, but Luna refused to buy that. She spotted a massive mark in the ground and knew the truth. He'd just launched himself with everything he had. Still, one thing haunted her. She couldn't figure out where he vanished to. The next instant, Achilles burst in behind Luna and swung like he owned the moment he was seconds away from striking. Luna's mind raced, screaming for an escape bend, teleport, anything. But she knew she wouldn't get the chance. Her mana was already tapped out at the limit. The man swings at the moon, but it's already vanished into thin air, and his strike just misses. The man stared at where the girl had been, stunned like she'd teleported again right in front of his eyes. The man snaps his head around, and there's Julius, standing there with the girl cradled in his arms. The one who just saved her. He snatched her up and hauled her to safety before anything else could get to her. The girl tried to speak, but her voice vanished. Then her eyes widened in awe as the great sage Julius actually saved her. Julius finally loosened his grip and let the girl go. Julia tells him she just got a message from Sir Edward, and the man fumes that Achilles has treated the girl horribly. He's furious. Then Achilles smirks and declares that the moon has already cracked their protective walls. Julia claims Achilles' razor precision is the real culprit behind most of the injuries, and says he never once thought about accuracy while the fighting was going on. Julius declares he'll cover every last repair for the walls and all the other damage, then swears they'll all write this off as, quote, just a training accident, and orders the injured soldiers to be sent to him later. Julius gets grilled about whether anyone's planning even more accusations against him. Achilles glares at the man, then spins on his heel and snaps that he's got no complaints, he's out, and that's that. Luna watched the man disappear, then Julius spun back to her and demanded she follow him so they could talk in private. Together, they stepped into the office. Julius leans in and asks if every girl really wants Lord Eric freed and restored as the rightful ruler of Frandal, and when he thinks it over, he can't help but chuckle. Luna stared at the man and suddenly remembered why everyone feared him. Julius, the kingdom's strongest magician and that ruthless prime minister. She couldn't stop wondering what he was about to force her into, so she clenched her hands into tight fists. She's already made the call. She'll save her father no matter what it costs, even if that means crossing the line into something illegal. Then Julius leans in and asks, "So you really think I'm that awful?" Luna can't stop wondering if she should have said something out loud, so she jerks her hand to her mouth. Panic hits while Julius tells her to calm down, insisting his conditions will end up helping her. The man already made it clear he's not interested in the moon at all, and when the girl hears that, she stares at him like she can't believe it. Julius leans in and says he's obsessed with Luna's talent, so her eyes go wide, and she blurts out, "Why would a man even need my talent?" Julius decides it's time to lay out his demands, and the girl's eyes widen as she hears exactly what this man is asking for. Achilles snaps, "Hold on, what did Julius just say?" The man boldly declares that Luna will be his wife. The man declares he's scrapping the war plan against Frandal and orders Lord Eric back, saying Eric will rule those lands as a blood relative to the king. Achilles cuts in immediately. That's not what he was asking about. He leans in and says it all over again. No doubt this time they're going to be husband and wife. Achilles figures Julius is just messing around, but the man turns back with a straight, deadly seriousness. Luna drops her eyes, keeps her mouth shut, and lets the silence hit like a punch. Luna's stomach dropped when she heard the news Julius was about to claim her as his wife. She pictures her sister snapping at her for hanging around the wrong crowd and not watching her step in the city. Then the man declares, straight up, that Luna's the one who's wrong. He repeats it again. He's only locked in on the girl's strength, not on her as a person. Then he lays out his reason for the marriage. He has to keep her talent within reach. Luna snaps, "Is this really why Julia decided to kidnap my father and keep Frandal trembling in fear?" She can't stop wondering why anyone would risk everything for power that huge, and Julius just stares at her, silent as stone. He ignores the girl's call, tells her the wedding happens tomorrow, then snaps that it's way past time, so he urges her back to her room, and finally tells her to follow him. Luna is dead certain that the great sage Julius is chasing the same power she tapped when she first met Fenrir. Edward clocked Luna's frown and snapped, "What's the point of raging about it?" He got it. She'd hate the thought of an arranged marriage, but he reminded her that aristocrats do this all the time. Then he leaned in and declared, "You're lucky," and asked, "So do you know what I mean?" The man tells her that marrying the prime minister will lift her status higher than every other aristocrat. She'll have a huge edge then. He adds that Luna will get to live like royalty in the royal palace, soak in the luxurious public baths, wander blooming gardens, and dive into the royal library packed with every kind of book. The second Luna heard the rumors about the books of mania, alarm bells blared and her emotions spilled out before she could even stop them. The man instantly clocked how thrilled she was, and Edward confirmed it with a grin. Their castle had a massive library waiting inside. Shock locks the girl in silence, then she snaps, screaming how a man over 60 can look her age, and the dude fires back that Mr. Julius is still handsome at 60. Edward stammers that he just roughly guessed, then explains how, back when he was way younger, he once swaggered into the palace and the great sage Julius was already serving as prime minister. Luna shoots Edward a stunned look, wide-eyed as his words hit her like a wave. He clocks it, breaks into a smile, and asks why she's staring at him like that. Meanwhile, Edward snaps back that he's never truly known what Mr. Julius wants, even after he once caught him eyeing a photograph and later admits he made a promise to someone. Achilles snaps, raises his voice at Julius, and tells him to stop talking like that. Then he declares the soldiers are set and roaring for battle because they've already dragged this campaign on for far too long, and he absolutely hates that Julius is about to blow everything up just by marrying a girl. Achilles snaps at Julius, asking if he even realizes what kind of trouble he's dragging onto everyone around him. The great sage swears this marriage is a win for the state that outweighs every headache, so Achilles presses him. Is that really true? The sage shrugs, saying it just sounds like some old man's rambling, sick of life and bored in his twilight years. And Achilles, he never buys a word of it about Julius. Julius drops his voice and says everything's already set in stone. Then he declares the ceremony will kick off in just a few hours. He slips the man the envelope and tells him, straight up, that he wants to see his participation. Luna stared at Achilles with a stamped, emotionless face, and then rage exploded across Achilles. His forehead veins bulged again. Edward stepped in beside his master and snapped that this was not the right moment. Luna stared at Achilles in total shock as horns started to sprout, and he just laughed, saying only Julius could pull off something like that. Julius kicks off the explanation Achilles has the berserker gift, trapping mana inside his body so the strength is unreal, but it comes with cracks. He's emotionally unstable and his mana levels are through the roof. The man explains that normal people shed extra mana, but Achilles can't, so it all builds up and turns him into a walking explosion, and right now, the god of war is completely out of control. Achilles snaps his head up, he swears he hears a voice, and then wham! He slams his hand into the column beside him, and it crumples in a heartbeat. Luna and Edward gasp in alarm. Achilles keeps roaring, begging for answers because a voice in his head is pushing him to fight, to take all that rage and turn it into war. The man shoots up and swings a brutal fist, trashing Julius as he does it, then Julius slips in to fight back. Edward says things are getting ugly fast, and he can't even picture how a clash between a great sage and a martial artist would play out because the fallout, he's sure, would be absolutely brutal. Luna can't stop herself from wondering if she should save Mr. Julius, because deep down, she remembers how Julius once saved her, and now she realizes, without him, their whole deal collapses. Julius claims he's got everything under control, folds his arms, and tells Luna to back off and stop interfering. The man glares at Achilles like he's ready to tear him apart, and you can tell he's about to unleash a special magic drawn straight from the environment. A blinding flash erupts. Luna and Edward scramble to shield themselves with their hands. Luna snapped her head toward the screams, stunned who was crying out like that. Voices buzzed in her mind, trying to piece together what happened and where this new player in the chaos came from. Right then, helplessness crashed over her and it felt weirdly familiar. Luna snaps into recognition the moment she hears Alma's voice. She's thrilled he knows the girl's mana, because if he didn't, he'd never have teleported straight into the palace. Alma and Raoul burst right in front of Achilles and he slams his hand into the barrier boom. The guy immediately tells them the palace situation is totally unstable. Luna can't stop smiling because Alma finally shows up looking incredible. Achilles grits his teeth and Alma whips around to greet the girl, thinking he should admit it's been ages since they last saw each other. The girl's cheeks flare red and Julius stares at Alma like trouble is about to strike. Julius almost stood face to face with disaster. He snapped up a barrier that blocked Achilles from landing a blow on the great sage. Achilles couldn't stop wondering how Alma slipped into the palace. Maybe he teleported. Right then it hit him. Their castle was wrapped in a barrier, but none of it mattered anymore. Rage tightened in his head because the man was sure of one thing. Alma was still going to be his prey. Alma whips around and catches Achilles glaring at him with pure simmering hatred. Then he whips his head toward Luna and blurts that he's just relieved she's safe and okay because he'd heard too many stories. And now he's terrified something awful might have happened to her. Achilles springs up and whips his arm to strike, and the guy doesn't even get a chance to react because the barrier snaps into action and shields him. Luna screams at Alma to look right. Now the attack is coming. The guy's jaw dropped when he realized Achilles wasn't just strong, his power was downright terrifying. Luna's eyes lit up as she stared at the boy, then she shouted his name. Julius snapped to attention. He finally clocked it, the mysterious guy Edward had been warning him about. Julius stared at the boy and realized he never once flinched into an attack. He just kept defending every strike from Achilles, like the boy couldn't even be hurt another way, and Julius swore he'd never seen magic like this. Alma's barrier didn't just hold, it snapped back at sudden hits, and then it clicked. The barrier was automatically shutting down every attack the moment it came. Achilles flashes a predatory grin and needles Alma with a brutal question. What's she gonna do when a man drops the floor out from under his feet? He slams the ground with his hand and it shatters. Alma realizes Achilles was trying to wreck the support. Achilles tells him, if your magic didn't seal everything in place, you wouldn't even get a single breath. He realizes the barrier only flinches when it gets hit by force, so Achilles figures, if I creep in quiet and slow, I can make it to Alma. The man lunges for Alma, and the moment he reaches out, his eyes blow wide because Alma slips away like she's already one step ahead. The man hisses through clenched teeth, fury spiking because Alma slipped past him and struck. Then Luna gasps when she spots Achilles' horns are gone. Julius stared at the fight and realized the automatic counterattack had targeted the man, so he snapped around to Achilles, and the instant Achilles faced him, the man asked Julius what he was trying to say. Then Julius, the mighty magician, demanded to know if he could finally calm down. Achilles grins so wide it's almost dangerous, then yells that he can't possibly calm down. His own hands are already smoking. Julius fires back, asking if Achilles can read the atmosphere. Achilles snaps that Julius is the one who kicked off the whole fight and admits he also never liked that illegal stunt getting into the palace. Julius bows his head and says Alma's one of the guests, and Hill snaps back that he's talking nonsense again, like the guy's got a safe word for every single situation life throws at him. Rage keeps building in Achilles, and he snaps, turning around and walking out. Achilles snaps his tongue in frustration, and a knight rushes up to ask if he's okay. Then he strains to explain to the general what pulling the army back will actually mean. He rubs the back of his head and shrugs, saying one monster is fine, but not two at the same time. The knight immediately asks what he means. A cold, chilling dread crawled out of Alma like Julius had been split right in front of Achilles' eyes. He grips his hand tight and tells himself, I'll take down Alma later. Julius strides up to Alma and demands to know if he and Luna are really friends, then shoots out a sincere apology for the awful way they were greeted. Then he steps forward, fires off his name, and tells everyone, I'm the great sage of this kingdom, and Alma just stares like she knows the whole truth already. He finally lays eyes on Julius for the first time, and after hearing a dozen wild stories about him, he can't believe he's not nearly as creepy as he'd imagined. Julius leans in, demanding to know why Alma showed up in the kingdom. Alma drops to a bow and announces that he's come to speak with the mighty sage Julius as Frandel's representative. Then he shoots an apology straight at the moment for barging in, uninvited, with Raoul. Alma had believed they were about to go to war, but now he's decided to settle everything through dialogue instead. And when he says he's relieved, it's clear he's putting to work what Pharaoh's household taught him about negotiation. Julius leans in and asks the boy if there's something he wants to say, then Alma blurts out that Lord Eric was wrongly blamed for organizing the rebellion. Alma hounded the man, insisting the Lord and his people had zero ill will toward the kingdom, and to prove it, she pushed him to take one of Farandole's artifacts, only for him to realize Alma had already snatched it straight from his vault. Julius shoots back that there's no need for any of this. Then the boy's eyes go wide with shock. Julius steps in closer and admits Alma's offer is tempting, but he's already locked things in with Luna. Then he drops the real bomb: Luna has agreed to marry him. Roll and Alma are left reeling, stunned speechless by this news. Luna's cheeks burn as she looks away. Meanwhile, Edward is in Eric's room and drops a bombshell: one of the most powerful people in this kingdom is going to be his son-in-law. He promises that from now on, Frandel and the whole family will never lack for anything. And then the man breaks down, sobbing hard because he finally understands what his daughter is being forced to sacrifice. Raoul hauled himself up off the floor and thrust his fist into the air, screaming that Julius just swapped one hostage for another and that this marriage had zero right to be called legal. Julius glared at the boy with pure rage, and Raoul panicked so hard he ducked behind Alma's back. Julius shrugs and says, marriages of convenience aren't some wild shock. They're pretty common. As long as both sides truly agree, he insists it's basically a normal marriage, and in his eyes, everything stays neatly within the kingdom's rules. Julius whips around to the girl and demands if he's right. Luna hesitates, unsure of herself, and then tries to find the words. But then he locks eyes with Alma, and right then, the words vanish. Alma waits on the edge of her seat for Luna's answer, and the girl drops her head like she already knows what's coming. She whips around to Alma and Raoul, grinning as she thanks them for trekking all the way here for her. She pushes back the fear, assuring them, I'm fine. Then Luna drops the real pitch: marrying a great sage will let her shield their lands, and with the kingdom behind them, Frandel can grow faster. She swears this is how everyone will finally grin again, but right then, the girl's mind snags. Why did Alma risk everything to save her? They haven't even known each other that long. Staring straight at Alma, her heart tightens with a crushing, painful ache. Luna drops her head again and whispers that if the people she loves are smiling, then she'll be smiling too. Then she tried to say more, but the words died in her throat. Alma shouted for Luna to press on, but Julia whipped out his cloak and blocked her. Julius whisked the girl away and snapped that the ceremony would happen tomorrow, then told them Alma and the rest of the bride's friends included that they could join in too. After that, he barked orders to the servants to take Raoul and Alma straight to the guest room. Julius snapped his gaze to Luna and, seeing the weariness on her face, told her to rest. Then they walked off together, while Alma just stood there, watching them disappear. A few hours later, Luna plopped onto her bed and stared at the wedding dress sitting right in front of her. The girl pondered the words, how she'd feel happiest when her relatives were happy, and then she finally nodded. choosing to follow what her heart was craving. She can't shake the thought, why did she suddenly start hesitating right there? The girl's mind spiraled over her feelings for Alma until a sharp knock on the window yanked her thoughts to a stop. She spun around and there was Alma, standing there like a ghost. Her jaw dropped at the sight of him. Raoul marched into the guest room and boom, luxury hit him like a wave. Everything looked decked out like a royal palace, and he even told Alma, "Are you seeing this too? Even the fanciest hotels don't get furnished like this." Yum. Alma barely reacts, but she still nods and agrees. Raoul jolts to a sudden knock at the door and bolts over to see who finally showed up. The boy spotted Edward, and the man immediately said he wanted to talk with the adventurers, just the two of them. Alma barged into Luna's room, and Luna snapped, "What are you doing in here?" Alma shot back that he'd come all this way to ask her face to face if everything was really okay. Then he stood there, hanging on her answer. Luna snaps that everything is already locked in, and she's convinced there's no other way to save her father, the territory, and their people. Then Alma cuts in fast and demands, "So you really believe there's no other way to protect the state?" He shoves an object into the girl's hands and Luna snaps into focus. It's a glove. She stares at him, like, "Why do I even need this?" Alma tells him how Sir Edward showed up and dangled an offer in front of him, and then he remembers it clearly. Edward barged into their room and basically said, "Let's settle this with a duel." He explained the kingdom's rules. If someone objects to the marriage, they can stand in public and challenge one of the couple to fight, but the newlyweds can refuse the challenge anytime. Still, if the objection is aimed at a great sage, then Edward insists he'll accept, and he makes the final point perfectly clear: the loser has to obey whatever the winner demands. Luna demands to know if, when Alma wins, Julius has to finally listen to him, and Alma nods, confirming her guess. Alma was nearly 100 sure this was a trap because he knew that glove was packed with an oath's power, and he could tell Edward and Julius had prepped for this. Down to the last detail, the truth hit him that Julius had been setting up a duel from the very start, which is why the man rejected Alma's offer so fiercely, knowing full well the great sage Julius couldn't be underestimated. The girl bowed her head, thinking, if Julius wins, there's no way we save Randall's lands. Then she grimaced, because she knew Julius's power was endless, and if he lost, Alma might still be forced to obey. Alma turned to her and demanded, "So what do you think about all of this?" She lifts her head and studies him with a sharp, questioning look. Alma admits he's been spinning through a bunch of scenarios, then says the truth. The girl is only happy when her loved ones are happy because her unhappiness would drag everyone down, including his own happiness, and now he's locked in on one mission. He just wants to see her smile. Alma tells Luna that if he's truly happy with everything, he'll toss the glove aside and walk his own path, no questions. But if the girl looks unhappy, Luna won't hesitate for a second. He'll step up, offer his hand, and lock in a duel. The boy thrusts out his hand and swears he'll take Julius down, while the girl shoots an embarrassed glance at Alma. Emma is pushing Luna to trust him and finally spill the truth about what she really wants, but the moment the words reach her, her head drops and the flood of emotions knocks the sound right out of her. A few seconds later, the girl snaps into an apology, and before the guy can even try to comfort her, she cuts him off, reminding him she left last time without waiting for Alma to come back. Then she shoots down his hope hard, refusing to believe he can pull off any kind of solution. Luna knew this might sound selfish, but when she saw his face again, it hit her hard. What she truly wants is to be with Alma and all the people she loves. She's begging for everyone to march back to their lands as one, because she refuses to stop believing in Alma. The girl burst into tears, and Alma pulled her into a warm hug, smiling through the chaos. Then the boy soothed her with a promise that everything was going to be okay, just like he'd heard what she'd asked for. The boy lit up because Luna finally found the nerve to gamble on him, and now it was his turn to prove he deserved her faith, with Alma swearing she'll make Luna happy no matter what. The girl stares at him, stunned. Then her cheeks explode into a huge blush, pure embarrassment, and she blurts out that what he said came out way too ambiguous. All this time, Achilles perched on the roof, watched and listened to everything, grinning at every little thing he saw, and as Alma kept pacing the palace, his confusion finally snapped into place, because now it all made sense. Achilles got hooked on the idea of the duel, so hooked he even considered stepping in himself. He can't stop smiling at the thought of it, because this is the first time in forever that 3 people are going to clash in one duel at the same time. And in his mind, it all comes down to one thing: Julius and Alma can't team up or plot against him, because if they do, nothing will be perfect. The man's mind wandered somewhere else, then bam, his own head snapped him awake with a voice, and he grinned as it hit him, remembering what mattered and declaring that he'd already cooked up a plan. Achilles lets out a grin, itching to scream his lungs out, then he leaps off the roof and strolls away. Luna spots the boy whirl around with a wary glare and she snaps, "What's going on?" But Alma just grins and says everything's fine because he knows Achilles is watching and feels him vanish the second he thinks it's over, leaving Alma with a smile that dares Luna to believe it'll be easy. Alma leans toward the window, and when Luna stands right behind her, Luna's left totally clueless about what's happening. So he decides, alright, if it's happening in a day, then I'm gearing up too. He stopped in the palace corridor like he might collapse, whipping his head left and right, desperate to spot anyone tailing him. He slaps his hands against the wall in front of him, hunting for a secret passage, convinced it's hiding somewhere in this place. Then he presses a brick. The right one clicks, and his eyes explode wide with shock. A passage bursts open right in front of him. He grins, then strides into it. The passage snaps shut. As Alma strode down the secret corridor, memories hit hard 200 years ago. When he first arrived at the royal capital, he'd carved out a secret shelter right here. And yeah, he's convinced that from the very start of his journey, this secret shelter was exactly the place he was hunting for. As I built this shelter, I poured in every ounce of my used spatial expansion magic and pocket space tricks, so anyone could burst out from here and reach any corner of the kingdom in a blink. He replayed his conversation with Luna, soaking up every word, and then it hit him. She told him about Julius's promise, so now he couldn't stop wondering what kind of promise that guy had actually made. Luna told him Julius was stacking strength to keep a promise to the man in the photo he couldn't stop staring at, and the boy was pulled right back into that picture. Luna asked if that info would help the boy. Alma nodded and said that if they wanted to take down Julius, they'd have to study him first. Then Luna grinned, saying Julius was counting on the boy. Alma kept moving through the secret corridor and couldn't stop thinking, why would Julius want power? It all came down to one promise, and she had to crack it. Maybe if she studied that photo, the answer would finally click. Alma can help Julius keep his promise. Julius is sure this will end peacefully, yet he's already weighing a darker move, grabbing the person from the photo as a hostage, even if it's not his best option, because once he swore on the moon, he'll use any means necessary. And then he steps into the right room and grins. He steps in and instantly spots one of his old pieces, and the thought hits him hard. What happens when you build brand new rooms on a whim? Back in his old life, it wasn't room design that mattered most. It was pure efficiency. Alma steps up, leans in, and starts inspecting it. Then he presses his hand to the thing and realizes it's even better preserved than he ever imagined, staring at the massive column looming right in front of him. After 200 years of total silence, he swore he'd return as nothing but dust, so he whipped his head around and realized he'd been away from this place for way longer than he thought. It was a homemade butler golem 200 years old, crafted in a world where every one of Alma's friends had already passed, and when he saw it, that artificial face hit him with a sudden, gut-deep nostalgia. The boy gently strokes the golem and blurts that it's been 200 years since they last met, then thanks it for guarding the place while Alma was gone, right? As the golem suddenly jerks to life, snaps into motion, and declares Alma's an intruder, locking itself in attack mode. Alma couldn't figure out why the golem wouldn't recognize him, then the thing swung at Alma anyway, and he barely dodged it, stunned out of his mind by how the golem acted. He figured the golem didn't recognize him because he'd been reborn. Alma knew the golem's database still held the biometrics of his old body from his past life, so those registered indicators could slip in and out without a hitch. Then the golem starts belching smoke like it's about to explode. If Alma's memory serves him right, his smoke screen dumps 3 nasty debuffs at once: paralysis, poisoning, and hallucinations. But Alma's auto barrier won't stop the poisonous mist, so Alma flips the script and fires up a buff spell that cranks his poison resistance sky high. Right then, it all clicked. He had jammed 8 sensors into the golem: a mana sensor, a thermal sensor, an optical sensor, and a mountain of others. Alma knew that thing could hunt any enemy, even stalking through poisonous fog. And the scary part, it didn't just fight it, rewrote its move by move. Algorithm for whoever stepped in. Newbies didn't stand a chance. Its brutal attacks would chew them up fast. Alma jukes the golem's strike and lands right behind it. Then she realizes the monster's been using concentrated acid that's eaten through the wall, and Alma clicks that this kind of acid is made from top-tier material. The boy froze, wondering what to do next. Sure, he could break the golem in seconds, but then it hit him. His old life flickered back, and he remembered exactly how he'd assembled it. Elmo stared around, stunned that the golem vanished. Then, out of nowhere, a creature lunged from behind him and slammed into the attack. The guide can't even blink before it all hits. He screams. The golem thinks the intruder is done for, so it shuts down its attack mode. Alma suddenly shows up behind him, and he blurts out, "I move fast." Yet somehow, he still pulled off one clone for every species, all powered by the golem sensors. He slaps the golem with his hand, triggers the biometric adjustment, then exhales hard with relief because he pulled off the update. The golem's nerves start to crack, and right then, Alma whips around and tells him, "Don't worry." He throws the blame onto himself, swearing he should have seen this coming in his past life. Elma whirls around and locks eyes with the golem, praying it'll keep guarding the shelter like it always has. Then the creature grins at the boy like it couldn't be happier. Alma wants to show the golem to Raoul or Luna, and the boy instantly gets hit with nostalgia because during the test run, it failed too, and some sneaky kid watched it happen now. Alma remembers that black-haired child who looks a bit like him. and the boy makes it to the control room, then suddenly snaps off every memory in his head. Alma used this room like a command center, gathering intel and tightening control at first. He watched every entrance and exit of the shelter, and then he spread his presence everywhere, eyes open across the whole kingdom. He dropped into the chair, slammed his fingers on the keyboard, and started hunting for Julius' room because if the cameras didn't cough up a photo, he'd have to go chase it himself. The boy finally tracked down Julius' room, but the cameras showed nothing. Julius was gone. He searched for the photo and came up empty. Alma's mind raced. Where could the man have stashed it? Then the boy decided, I'll check the room while Julius is out. Still, doubt hit him. What if Julius had slipped away for a walk? Suddenly, Alma snapped to it. Someone's footsteps pounded nearby, and he couldn't wrap his mind around the fact that this stranger somehow knew about the secret hideout from his past life. It was Julius heading straight for the control and observation room, so I'd spin around and start mapping out every move I could make next. Julius pushed deeper into the room, buzzing with urgency to check on the castle situation. Then he closed in on the observation room and stared straight into the cameras. The man leaned in and stared straight at the camera feed. There was Alma and Raul's room, and the guests looked like they were holding their breath, staying unnervingly quiet. Alma crouched behind the wall, heart pounding, and made it just as the steps hit. He hid in time. The eyes played the recording for the man, but he barely cared about the footage. All he could focus on was how Julius slipped into the secret shelter. Alma clutched every magic passage and hid them away. She knew Julius, the kind of magician who finds anything, would come hunting, but as the mystery unfolded, she couldn't stop asking where he was headed and what he wanted. The guy couldn't stop thinking about that golem that was meant to guard the place. Would it still be around? Or what happened to it? It was built to smash anyone who stepped into the database, and Alma started wondering if Julius might have somehow gotten himself registered in the system. Then he locked eyes with the man and saw it clear as day. He was marching straight to Alma's office. The same place this guy used to haunt all the time, sinking into magical treatises like they were old friends. He figured the man was hunting for a book to give him the edge in the duel because Alma remembers him stuffing the most valuable volumes into storage. And Julius walks into the office expecting answers, only to find nothing then. Alma watches Julius pull a photo from his pocket, and the guy realizes it's probably the exact one Luna was warning about. Julius stares at the photo and blurts out a name so familiar that Alma feels it in her bones. Alma can't even wrap his head around it. He spent his whole life studying magic, polishing his skills to perfection, so how could this happen? Only a handful of people ever knew his real name. Julius blurted out his old name like it had just snapped back into place. Alma still remembers nodding off in his office chair when a dark-haired boy named Julius I, who'd been mauled by a rampaging Gallum, staggered in, offered him food, and when he finally looked up, Alma apologized and admitted he'd just drifted off. The boy swore he'd leave the food by the master, then dropped the grocery bag on the table right next to the chair, and out of pure whim or boredom, Alma began teaching Julius magic, because she figured he must have been drowning in loneliness, just begging for someone to talk to. Then Alma snapped, "Look over there," and told the boy to stare at the golem. A flash crackled, Julius yelped and demanded to know what it was. Then Alma rushed to the golem, yanked out a photo, and told the kid it was just a test sample. She said the golem fused an optical sensor with light magic, and the man showed the picture to Julius. Julius grabbed it and lit up like a kid on fire, saying it felt like another world had burst into view. Alma then leaned in and told him that photos work the same way their own eyes do. Julius lifted his head and asked the man if he could take the photo with him, and the man let him, but Julius couldn't shake the weird feeling the picture showed nothing in color. Still, Julius shrugged it off and said it didn't matter. The boy gripped the photo in his hand and swore he'd treasure it forever, while Julius does the exact same thing right now. Julius grinned, and that exact moment came flooding back like a lightning strike. He spotted dust piled up on his master's chair, like it had finally been caught by the quiet. Alma burst out of his hiding spot, stunned to find that the legendary sage Julius had already scrubbed clean the very office he once used in his past life. He patted his chair like it had betrayed him, then reluctantly backed away. Alma's mind raced. If that really was Julius, then it would finally explain why those golems were moving. Alma could feel it. Julius had made him a promise, and now he couldn't stop wondering what it was, or whether it was really his fault that a cruel, heartless prime minister was born and started terrifying ordinary people. What promise had Julius slipped to him? Alma tried to remember, clawing at the gaps in his mind, because one thing was crystal clear. Now, he had even more reason to fight. The very next morning, Luna stepped out in her wedding dress and waited outside the church because this was the exact place where her and Julius's wedding would finally happen. Luna ran into Julius, and he grinned that she looked amazing. She nodded at the compliment, then crushed the moment no wedding was happening. He grinned and spun around the moment he felt Alma breathing down his neck. Then the kid faced the great sage and thrust out his gloved hand. "Duel me, Alma, had one mission: prove that Julius was the very same Julius. Alma shoved on the glove and swore that if he lost, he'd swallow every demand this guy threw at him. Then he locked eyes with the man, replaying every promise he'd made. Alma tells him, "If you win, this marriage gets tossed as illegal and every charge against Lord Frandel vanishes." Julius fires back, "Deal, I accept." Alma and Julius finally reach the kingdom of Famuria's colossal coliseum, a massive arena towering over everything, ringed by gigantic stone warrior statues clutching their weapons. Alma faced Julius across from each other, with the priest standing between them, while everyone else stepped back and watched the duel unfold. Everyone kept asking who Alma even was, why he dared take on the prime minister, and just how fast their showdown would be over. Raoul forced a grin, but his nerves screamed the moment he stepped onto enemy ground and his stomach tangled in a full-on ache. Luna nodded along with the guy, but deep down, she just knew Alma wouldn't slip up, not for a second. Luna clenched her hand and recalled the promise Alma made. Then Raoul grinned, only to hear a man's voice calling out as he asked the villagers to insert. He had the crowd hooked, promising them a prize if they dared to guess how much Alma was about to lose, and he was fully convinced Alma wouldn't last much longer. Out of nowhere, a sack of gold coins slammed into the man who was taking bets right in the face. Raoul had shoved every last coin on Alma to win, then laughed it off, saying Alma didn't have a clue what losing even felt like. Luna went pale, stunned that Raoul had risked everything. The priest steps forward, grabs everyone's focus, and announces that it's showtime. The duel that'll decide the fate of the married couple starts now. The priest explains that Alma stepped forward and raised a sharp objection to Julius and Luna. He lays down the rules for victory. You win by making your enemy swallow defeat, or by breaking them so badly they can't fight anymore, and whether it turns into a death match is up to the fighters themselves. Then the priest snaps in the final twist. If anyone storms out of the arena, it's an automatic loss. Alma stared at Julius, and the moment she saw his face, it hit her. Those familiar features, it had to be him. It just couldn't be real. But right then, the priest boomed that weapons were off limits. Well, not totally. There were still loopholes, and with everything happening at once, Alma's mind snapped to three possible explanations. The first one was the simplest. Julius really was Julius. The problem, how in the world could someone live past 200 years? Another theory says Julius is just a perfect copy of Julius, but that feels way too far-fetched, because building an artificial body that could slip past Gollum's defenses would chew up too much time and resources. So everyone leans toward a different method instead. And the third option hits harder. Someone unleashed necromancy. Alma can barely believe it, but she thinks Julius's body might be getting puppeted by forbidden magic. As long as the necromancer has a body, everything else is easy, but he can't wrap his head around why they need Julius's body here. Alma figures the necromancer's trying to sneak into his secret refuge. Then Alma shuts out every distraction and makes up his mind right now. He can't afford to be pulled away. The priest whips around to Julius and demands, "If you lose, do you swear you'll quit the moon and bow to Alma's terms?" Julius swore without hesitation. Then the priest swivels right back to Alma and fires the exact same question. Alma glances at Julius, and the boy shoots back, "I swear it." The priest roared that the duel was on, then Alma ripped through with his deadliest fire magic, and Julius snapped back with the strongest water magic to counter him. Julius's water lance slammed into Raoul's Alma's fire lance, and the instant they collided, boom, Raoul, Edward, and Luna got blasted back by the shockwave. To keep every spectator safe, they slammed up a barrier. Alma and Julius tore through the arena, cutting across every inch of it. Alma ripped the sky open with fire magic meteor shower, and Julius answered with the ultimate water magic, a water storm, and then boom, another massive explosion tore everything apart. To every spectator watching Julius and Alma, it looked like they were matched blow for blow, so strong, so even, and yeah, some folks couldn't help but wonder if he was really imagining it. Alma realizes Julius's punches weren't just strikes, they were experiments. And it's like he can't bring himself to treat the fight as the real deal. Alma couldn't shake the fear. Would this spark even more trouble for him? Julius licked it. Right there, Alma's face locked on him. The man snapped to it. Alma was going in for an attack, so the guy blasted the support right out from under his feet. For a second, it looked like Alma was copying Achilles' style, but then he caught the truth. This was just a smokescreen. Alma lifted her fist and went for the hit. His gaze snaps to the shards, eyes blowing wide with shock. Julius really pulled off an ice clone with those pieces. Right then, Julius lunges to land a hit, but Alma snaps out of the way, dodges, and springs back. When she does, she spots stray hairs floating in the air. Julius clocks it too. Alma has suddenly forced close quarters combat, even though Julius is the wizard, and he realizes this kid isn't some easy target. He's got real battle experience, even if he's still young. So Julius whips out water magic and shouts, "A sword!" He springs up and dashes in to smash the guy, and when he attacks, he fires off a line about Alma getting more and more interesting by the second. Alma snaps into a fighting stance and admits he's flattered. Then he unleashes a mass body strengthening spell. A man bursts into action and swings his sword like he's about to decide everything in one strike. The guy nails him with several hard hits, no time to dodge, so the man thrusts his sword forward, then Alma smashes the blade clean in two, and the man realizes she's already winding up for another strike. Alma slams her strike and sees eyes explode with shards. He realizes, yep, it's another ice clone. Right then, that guy spots a sword blade popping up right next to his throat. He finally got it. He wasn't just sparring, he was going toe-to-toe with a legendary sage. So yeah, this was exactly what he'd been expecting. He claims Julius kicked things off with ice magic, spraying the pieces all over the arena just to mask his clone, and then he straight up asks, "Did I get everything right, or did I miss something?" Elma leans in and demands why he still hasn't been hit, and Julius just smirks, saying he's waiting. He demands to know why Alma baited him into this exact spot. The guy doesn't get a single word. Julius is saying, then he whips around and sees the earth beneath the man's feet splitting open, crack by terrifying crack. A massive worm erupted out of nowhere right by his side, and Julius snapped to it. This thing was summoned with summoning magic. He smashes the underground monster to pieces in a single brutal blow. The man whips his head toward Alma, grins, and tells her he's been caught. The man still stood right in front of Alma, and the boy couldn't stop his mind from racing. How in the world did Julius know he'd just summoned a monster? Julius thrust his hand toward Alma and unleashed his deadliest ice magic, casting the Ice Lotus spell. The whole area suddenly went stone still. Raul and Muna couldn't shake the fear about Alma because all they could see was a massive block of ice and Julius standing right beside it. Julius spins around and demands to know if the guy really used the teleporter because Alma is staring down from right above him. Julius warned that this kind of magic is downright dangerous, but if you stay sharp and keep your eyes on your surroundings, it stops feeling so terrifying because the man's pulling out ice magic and flinging ice spikes. Alma stares at the man as it clicks. Julius has already clocked every move he's made. Then the guy goes all in, unleashing the hottest flame magic, the scorching heat spell, and slams lightning into the fire. Julius snaps his hand back and counters with water magic. Julius unleashes the god of ice and Alma fires back with the god of fire and thunder, then their powers slam into each other. Julius tells her that the second Edward said that boy's name, his gut knew the meeting would crash like this, because ever since he was thrown out, he's been watching Alma drift from place to place, and now Alma can't believe the man even knows that. In the trading city of Terrestal, that man still remembers the sudden wave of brutal nightmares and how it all matched down to the timing with a mountain-sized monster that blotted out the sky in the Tonop Mountains, then vanished just as fast. When he finally investigated, he found the chilling truth. Both horrors synced up with the boy's every move after he was banished from Farouz. Julius, tapping straight into the kingdom's information network, has gathered every scrap of intel on Alma and his moves, so now he can predict the monster's look and every other move that guy makes. The man lunges to freeze the boy. Alma snaps back, lands hard, and realizes ice is already creeping over his legs. Julius presses on, stunned that Alma can not only sling high magic, but also stitch it together for even bigger impact. Then he reminds her that both kinds of magic demand time to stock up mana, and once you know the window, those blasts are way easier to shut down. He even claims that if Alma's barrier can block his ice attacks, it still can't stop ice air from spreading, so he fires the question, "Am I right?" Alma just shakes the ice off her boots, and he can't help thinking Julius is incredibly smart. Julius rockets upward and declares it's time to finish the fight, then unleashes his special ice magic iceberg. Alma realizes it all. Julius is backing this battle with total, unshakable confidence that he'll win. Julius cuts in and demands to know what's going on. Then he tells him, straight up, that it's time for Alma to finally show what else she's hiding, and he's betting on whether the kid will break before that ice block crushes him. Raul bursts into screams the second he spots the ice block, and his fear hits hard. He's convinced that in an arena this tiny, Alma won't have a chance to dodge if that attack lands on him. Alma plants himself right under the ice block, convinced he'll get one shot to make it work, so he scrambles for an answer. Fast. Julius suddenly roars at Alma that he can seize his power too, and the boy can't help but stare in shock. What in the world does that even mean? Julia had said it earlier, he already knows Alma's story. He's convinced getting kicked out of the family hit that kid hard. He figures Alma came to the West to build herself up and strike back. And yeah, he's totally satisfied with that explanation. Julius has no clue what Alma's techniques really are, but he's not about to let that kind of talent slip away. He demands the boy swallow defeat and bow to him, then hammers Alma with this promise, join him as his right hand and she'll become the kingdom's second most powerful force. Raul and Luna stared at that boy, worried sick, while Julius hung back, silently waiting for Alma to finally speak. The boy bowed his head, convinced that anyone who heard about his eastern adventures might think he was desperate, but deep down, that wasn't true at all. Alma lifts her head and tells Julius she really appreciates his offer, then he waves it off, grinning because he's perfectly happy with how things stand right now. Alma doesn't want to take Julius up on his offer at all. What matters to him is only the trips with Luna and Raul, and in the days after, Frandel days where Luna finally felt happy because of Alma's choice, Julius was absolutely pissed off. Alma whips around to the great sage and blurts out that she's got something back. Then the sage admits it's a spell Julius hasn't even laid eyes on yet. He leans in and drops the bomb. Julius knows something about this spell, then Julius is left totally baffled. Alma thrusts out his hand and the vault pops into existence in his grip like it was summoned. Julius narrows his eyes at the guy, totally suspicious. Every spectator leans in, desperate to guess what kind of insane box that guy just yanked out of his sleeve. Julius snaps to attention. This is a vault. Just like the magic he's heard about. He figures Alma's about to snatch some ancient weapon, and he remembers the duel's rules perfectly. Weapons are allowed as long as they're enchanted. Julius decides he's got this for now, calls it pretty interesting, and the man smirks, says the guy can pick any weapon he wants, but nothing in the world will stop him. Alma's about to unleash some magic. He summons a Gallum right then, and Julius stares at the guy, completely stunned. Right now, the Gallum whips around and slams straight into Julius's ice block, but the man snaps out of the way at the last second. Julius couldn't stop staring at that golem in the arena. Then his real worry hit. Where did Alma even get it from? He figured the guy must have slipped into the secret room and stolen it, but there was one brutal problem no matter what he did. He couldn't destroy the thing. When the golem lifted its arm to smash, Julius barked, "Stop," and demanded it see. They weren't enemies. The moment the golem realized its target, it halted mid-attack. Julius stared back at it, grim as the end of the world. Suddenly, Alma slips up behind Julius. She says the man has opened him up, so Julius whips around, and before he can react, Alma's hands are already on him. He fires off the Light of Purification spell, and Julius scrambles to shield his eyes from the blinding glare. Raul blurted, "What's happening?" But the blinding flash swallowed the world, and he couldn't make out a single thing. Suddenly, Julius's mask rips away and slams onto the ground. Everyone clocks his angry face, and the man snaps, asking why Alma unleashed that purifying light spell, because if she'd gone for offensive magic, he swears he would have definitely landed the hit. He couldn't stop thinking, why did Alma cast magic that wipes away every bad status? Alma snaps back that she just needs to be 100, sure. Julius is truly in control of his own body because the guy clearly has no idea what they're talking about. Alma leans in and asks if he's still not figured it out. He leans in and demands Julius spell it out. Who does he think that guy really is? The man's eyes fly open with pure shock. Julius shoots Alma a question about what he just heard, and his mind immediately races. How did that kid know his real name? Alma leans in and asks, "So you still don't get a single thing?" Julius stares at him, completely stunned. Julius let out a tired sigh and said that everything finally made sense to him now, how Alma knew his old name, and why he was certain Alma had stolen all the powers, plus the ability to control the golem. He even claims the boy snatched his master's books, magic and research outright. Alma can't shake the feeling that he screwed up because in his old life, he'd never once crossed paths with a reincarnator, not in all that time, and it felt like a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. And honestly, who in their right mind would believe that someone can recount their past life with that kind of calm? So now, Alma has to figure out how to prove it to him. Julius clenched his fist. He'd hunted for his master's whereabouts for 200 long years, and the moment of this meeting finally snapped into reach. Rage ignites in him as he snaps that this is unforgivable because out of every name Alma could have chosen, she picked the one that belongs to his master. Alma locks eyes with Julius and just stares. A towering golem surged toward Luna and Raul just stood there, clueless. Alma and Julius were talking, but he couldn't hear a thing. Even the great sage's face looked heavy with sorrow as he stared at Luna. Alma blurts out, "Why are you so hooked on my master, Julius?" And Julius fires back, "Did some magic draw me in? Or was there something I desperately wanted?" He just couldn't wrap his head around why everyone was obsessed with a guy who'd been dead for 200 years. Julius snapped at Alma to shut up, then swore that his master is alive because he'd made a promise, leaving the boy desperate to figure out what promise it even was. Julius lays out exactly what went down that day, piece by piece, like you're about to relive it with him. Then he finally tapped into ice magic and forged a crystal snowflake, and the master erupted in praise, telling him he had a natural gift for ice magic, and that he'd need to focus on studying it above all else. The man clocked the weird look on the boy's face, and then he snapped, "What happened?" Julius lifted his head, broke into a grin, and said he was done dreaming. He wanted to learn the exact magic the master once showed him. The man mulled it over, then admitted the magic was still being built, especially since Julius's magic was still weak, but the boy didn't back down. He swore he'd get stronger. Then the man told him he'd probably be out of this place soon, and Julius immediately shot him a worried look. The man leaned in and spilled that he'd heard wild rumors about the Eastern contingent and that he'd be gone next week. The boy's face crumpled. he was devastated. On departure day, Julius faced the man head-on, heart heavy with sadness. The man clocked the child's crushed expression and told him to watch the room, and Julius snapped his head up, staring at the man with sharp curiosity. He promised that every book and magical tool would be handed to him on his command, then bragged that selling some of their books could rake in a fortune so the boy would never have to chase money again. Plus, he claimed certain books would make him stronger. Julius practically beamed. He couldn't believe he got the chance to wield magical instruments and dive into those precious treatises. The man leaned in and warned the boy to stay on his guard, because he'd heard war was about to crash into these parts. Then he promised him he'd be safe as long as he kept to the room's walls, and he warned, straight-faced, that if the boy lost the mark, the door would slam shut forever. The boy couldn't stop thinking about the war, and the man admitted it was going to be rough, then pressed him, asking if he could truly count on the boy. His eyes blow wide, and he swears he'll do everything right. Then he promises to guard this place with his life until his master comes back. The man towered over him, ruffled the boy's hair, and thanked him for his help, then told him, "We'll see each other again." Julius roared that his master would come back exactly like he promised, so he stands guard, protects the master's room, and keeps the whole country safe, because he's prepared to do whatever it takes, and he's dead certain his master will return. Alma barely cared about that promise because he just knew Julius would be. Julius, he took him in on a whim, but he still clung to that moment like it mattered. And for 200 years, he fought tooth and nail to keep anyone from ever disgracing them. Emma was on the brink of death when Julius finally crossed his path, and then he vanished, because he never met him again. Not once Julius's first life crumpled to an end, and he still couldn't keep the promise he'd made. Alma clenched her jaw and tried to force the words out of her mouth. Julius snatched up the boy in panic, and there he was crying and begging for forgiveness while Julius stood there, completely stunned. Alma tells Julius that the man he wants to meet has been dead for ages 200 years. To be exact, the man snaps back that it's all a lie, refuses to trust Alma, and keeps pushing ahead, while Alma desperately tries to make him see that he can't keep acting like the villains. Julius snaps at the boy to stop this chaos, and Alma blurts out that right now, he's genuinely grateful to the goddess for the gift he got, because meeting Julius again gave him one shot to fix every mistake he'd made back then. The man stared at this boy, shocked out of his mind, because he could see Alma was really crying, yet he still couldn't accept it. It all slammed him back to what Alma had said about his master's death. Julius almost gets spotted, then he snatches his mask off the ground and moves fast. He tells Alma, "If you really want this whole farce to keep going, then Julius is going to play along." He snaps on a mask and swears he'll unleash every ounce of his power, every spell he's got. Julius clasps his hands and unleashes his special spatial magic. He forges a world out of ice, trapping everyone in his prison, and when Alma witnesses what that man can do, her jaw drops in pure amazement. Julius sinks onto the ice throne and declares he's ready to test Alma because out in that frozen void, even life itself gets trapped and stiffens. He's dying to see how long Alma can cling to her point of view, then Alma starts freezing right in front of him. Ice clung to his feet like a frozen trap. Alma suddenly realizes he never showed Julius the finished form of the ice prison, and when he sees Julius pull off the spell after just one look, his shock turns into pure amazement. Julius' talent floors him, and the man can't help asking what all of it means. Alma clasps her hands tight and declares it's finally time to keep the promise. He's about to unleash a rare spatial magic, his spell, Vision, carved in ice. The crowd stared at that monstrous ice block towering over the whole arena, and Raoul couldn't help wondering what in the world was happening because weird, eerie sounds kept crawling out of it. Alma carved the spell Vision straight into the ice, and Julius spun around, staring like, what did she just do? He guessed it had to be ice magic. Julius couldn't move, his whole body got locked in ice, and even his magic died in his hands. The freezing air stopped pouring over the arena, and every ice shard just hung there, frozen mid-fall. Alma kicked things off by saying that every single thing in the Made world is soaked through with particles called the element of time. Alma swore that if you cranked these particles up, time would sprint for you, then if you dragged their motion down, time would crawl instead, so he forced the particles to freeze. And when they stopped, time itself finally died out. Alma said the ice prison world didn't just freeze you, it stretched from frostbite all the way to time, and it was powered by a vision carved into the ice itself. Julius just couldn't wrap his head around how that was even possible. Alma says Julius's ice magic talent lets him instinctively sense the very bones of an icy world, and Julius admits that a non-real master could never reach magic perfection like that. Just as he was about to show Julius that spell 200 years ago, he apologized for keeping Julius waiting, and the moment the words left his mouth, the man crumpled and started to cry because now he finally understood that Alma was the kind gentleman who'd taken him in. The ice block shatters into nothing, and the priest plus every single spectator stands there, staring at the chaos as it unfolds. Raoul couldn't stop asking who came out on top while Julius stood dead center. Luna stared at him with worried eyes, and her mind kept circling back to Alma's loss. But then Julius crumpled to the ground, and right then, Alma snapped into place in front of him. Every single spectator stared in disbelief, blown away by what they just witnessed. The priest bellowed that Alma had won, and the crowd erupted in pure joy, screaming their heads off. They couldn't even wrap their minds around it, because they just watched the great sage get beaten. Then the priest declared the oath was fulfilled. Alma's engagement with Luna was officially annulled. Alma didn't see it coming at all, but once it hit, he lit up with happiness. Right then, as people moved in toward Julius, the priest slammed down the final bombshell. Lord Eric, the ruler of Frandal, would be cleared of every charge. The boy heard Luna shouting his name, then the girl came sprinting over and wrapped him in a hug, and when he smiled back, she leaned in and told him she truly believed he'd succeed. Raoul and Edward rolled it up on them, Raoul grinning like he always did, hands behind his head, while Edward scrambled to hide his own smile. Alma says the crowd was buzzing like crazy, but he didn't want to steal all the spotlight. Edward then says nobody could have guessed Mr. Julius would get taken down, and he adds that a real duel like this is a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. Last time a bride was snatched was 140 years ago, he says. Alma finishes by saying he understands it all. The boy blurts out, "So what do Edward's words about stealing the bride really mean?" And Edward explains that the duel started as a furious protest against their political marriage, an attempt to snatch the bride right out from under everyone's nose. Legally, it's almost victory. She and Luna are basically married. Luna and Alma can't even look up, mortified. Then Raoul blurts open his mouth in pure shock. Raoul snaps at Edward. "Why are we hearing about this only now?" The man brushes him off, saying he'll handle the ceremony plans himself, so Luna and Alma won't have to worry, but Raoul didn't mean it like that. Luna blushed hard as they spilled all those crazy details about the wedding with Alma, while the guy looked completely stunned, like he couldn't believe he was suddenly stuck having to get married. After the arena battle, Alma and Julius stormed back to the office, and Julius dropped straight into the seat right in front of him, leaning in as if he'd been waiting to hear every word. Yeah, right, where we left off then, they grinned like they just won. Julius finally tells them what went down 200 years ago, then yanks off his mask and admits that 10 years after Alma vanished, he was forced to fight a brutal magician called Demon on the outskirts of the capital. And when Alma stared at the man's face, shock hit her like lightning. He can only guess what went down. Then the man tweaks his hair until his eyes show, and Alma realizes Julius's eyes have turned completely to stone. Julia warned that overusing magic will shred your body's defenses. Julius lays it out. Demons look humanoid. They can understand speech, and they live for ages longer than humans, stronger bones and brutal hearts. Plus, he's heard they've been at war with the goddess since forever, clashing with humans again and again. He leans in and says that 200 years back in a brutal war, a legendary hero slaughtered nearly all the demons right down to their king. Julius finally met the demon and boom, his body started hardening into stone. The demon spun around, stunned, and snapped that he never thought that in his brief sleep, the demons would get wiped out. He spun around, flashed a grin, and told them he'd love to become the next king. Julius couldn't even wrap his head around it. He felt the loss closing in. He couldn't forget the promise Alma swore to him, so he shoved every last ounce of power into his body and swore he wouldn't be beaten. Then he shot his hand forward, ready to strike the demon. The demon spun around and flashed that predatory grin again, and the man snapped that it was an arrogant demon right before Julius's sudden attack smashed into him and dropped him instantly. But Julius has been forced to deal with partial petrification right now. He's basically more stone than flesh. Julius snapped his mask back on and swore those fossilized cells were basically bulletproof against aging then. Even as his hair turned white, the rest of his body stayed exactly the same. Alma finally clicks. She understands how Julius managed to live past 200 years. But Julius had no clue when the stone curse would finally snap over him. He swears it could hit at any moment. Julius spots Alma's crushed expression. Then the guy immediately blurts out an apology, swearing it all happened because his careless words started the whole mess. Julius pushes forward to support Alma, insisting plain and loud that his body's condition doesn't bother him one bit, and even claiming it's kind of convenient in some ways. He tells them his fingertips run ice cold, yet when he shoulder checks people, he never feels a thing, and then he cracks nuts like it's nothing. Alma watches all of it and calls him an optimist. Julius reads that the biggest win is getting to meet Alma, and the moment he finishes, he flashes a grin. Meanwhile, Alma beams right back, just as thrilled that their paths finally crossed. Julia tells him the truth. His situation isn't even close to Alma's. He scoffs. Sure, reincarnation is nothing more than a story from old books. He figures the kid's gone bitter from how people keep judging him, but Alma shuts that down fast. It's not like that at all. In this new world, belief in the goddess runs so deep, it's everywhere. Everyone swears that when you die, your soul gets whisked to the goddess's realm. She wipes every last memory of your life clean, along with your sins, then sends you back again through rebirth. Alma couldn't just swallow that story. His thoughts about reincarnation hit him like a knockout punch and broke the whole flow. And you know what? 200 years ago, religious fanatics weren't ready for anything like that. Julius demanded what he should do, so I'll move. stared at the man, completely lost, like he had no idea what he meant. Julius demands what he should call him, the past version or the one standing here now. The guy lets out a heavy sigh and says he's fine with Julius using the old name, but then he makes it clear his real current name is Alma. Julia tells him he'll be called whatever Alma wants, and he drops to a bow and promises right then and there that from this moment on, his life is all Alma's. The boy gulps down tea and snaps that it's way too much, then burns his tongue and yells that it's way too hot. Julius' face turns grim. He calls Edward. Edward answers, barges into the office, and stands there, listening as the Prime Minister's order is read. Julius roars that the court physician must be brought to his office right now, and Alma rushes in to calm him down. Then Edward asks if he should summon a particular doctor for Alma. Julius answers by demanding every physician they can find, but Alma snaps back that he's going way too far. After their duel, Luna and Raoul decided to rush back to Frondol, but Luna hit pause and begged for more time. She hadn't even finished reading the treatises packed in the library. Julius stepped in, found them a place to stay, and that's how they ended up holding their ground in the capital for the moment. Raoul caught Alma's attention by pointing at a fountain. And yeah, Alma barely blinked. Fountains were everywhere, but this was Raoul's first time in the capital, so this kind of spectacle was brand new for him, while Alma felt a wave of nostalgia hit her like it never stopped. Luna closes in on him, draping herself over his shoulder, and Alma snaps, "Are you okay?" But the girl shakes her head, apologizes, and blurts that she was only dizzy. He pressed his forehead to Luna's, felt her temperature, and snapped that it was way too low. Then Luna blushed hard, bolted off, and screamed, "I'm fine," while he stood there totally confused, watching her run without stopping her. After the duel ended, tension hit hard, and an awkward silence crawled between him and Luna. He couldn't shake the feeling that the girl was clocking him as the reincarnator, and the moment she remembered that wedding with Alma, embarrassment hit her so hard, she practically folded in on herself, pure, unbearable awkwardness. Alma leaned in and asked if the girl had gotten sick by chance. Then he checked her symptoms and snapped to the truth it wasn't a disease at all. It was a level increase. The girl had no idea what that meant, so Alma broke it down. A level increase happens when your body can't handle the jump in power in a short time, and that's when headaches and fever can hit. He cracked open the systems and kept explaining this was just the growing pains kicking in. Then he caught Luna's level skyrocketing to level 5, and Alma remembered the brutal opponents Luna had been taking on lately. All that fighting piled up experience points, and Luna lit up because she finally got stronger. Out of nowhere, Raoul grabbed their attention. He demanded to be told he felt bad because he'd gotten stronger, and Luna shot back, asking why he was acting so weird. While Alma shrugged and said it was probably just jealousy. Alma snapped back to reality. His level was still stuck at 1. He wrestled with the same brutal truth to level up from that base. You only needed 1 of the minimum experience, but the higher you climbed, the more experience it demanded. If he wanted fast points, he'd have to hunt down deadly, dangerous opponents, and when it was all over, by the end of his life, Alma barely managed to raise his level at all. He thinks Fenrir and Julius are a dangerous matchup, but he still steamrolls them with ease. In his eyes, they're nothing but low-level opponents, and it usually takes tons of experience points just to reach their kind of level. Right when the boys' thoughts were about to race ahead, Luna and Raoul crashed the moment Raoul demanded what they should do with this sudden power boost, and Alma said they only had to refill their strength, eat up, and get plenty of rest, and Raoul practically lit up with happiness. Raoul flashes a bag stuffed with gold coins and brags that he just scored big. Then he talks about that same guy who used to run bets, and Luna shoots back, "Wait, are these really the winnings from gambling on duels?" Luna, Raoul, and Alma hunted for somewhere to eat, but every restaurant they tried turned out empty, zero luck. Raoul figures they must have skipped the busiest spots, and then it hits him. This whole mess feels weirdly familiar, like he's lived it before. Alma couldn't shake the feeling that the street was hauntingly familiar, like he'd walked it before, back when he came to a restaurant down the road 200 years ago. Raoul couldn't wrap his head around it. How on earth was a restaurant even here? I'll never forget it. The place served real, home-style comfort food, and every bite hit like pure gold. I still remember the owner too, always generous, piling on huge portions, like it was nothing. Yeah, I definitely knew that restaurant. Alma suggests they hit up that restaurant, and Raoul grins like, "Yeah, we can do it." So they head toward this busted up house, and the sign out front screams that they're open. Alma stares at the house, unsure and unsettled, because part of him still swears he wasn't here 200 years ago. Alma, Luna, and Raoul storm into the restaurant, and the place is totally empty. Raoul leans in, asking if this is really how things usually are. Alma can't help thinking about how it's gone downhill. Over time, he remembers it packed the last time he came. Then a girl slips up to their table, drops off the food, and shoots them a quick apology for making them wait. He locked eyes with Luna and Raul first, then dug in and ate. Raul and Luna took one bite of those dishes and their faces lit up like they'd just found a hidden treasure. Raul said the food was simple, but every bite still hit with a rich, satisfying flavor, while Alma beamed because his friends actually loved it, and Luna couldn't get enough of the taste either. Once Alma noticed Luna finally felt better, the tension melted off his face, and he was over the moon. Then the boy took a bite, and his eyes shot wide with shock. He couldn't wrap his head around it. After 200 years, the same flavors were still intact, and that alone made him grin, because some things really never change. Raul nods along, fully backing Alma. He whips his head around and demands to know what that weird statue is doing behind Alma. Alma whips around and stares straight at the statue. He spotted a statue shaped like a cat. Raul muttered that the cat looked like scary little monsters, but Luna snapped right back that it was totally cute, while Alma stared at the figurine and swore she'd seen it before. Then the hostess rushed over with their food and told them the cat was a family heirloom, and the guy leaned in, listening to every word the girl said. She tells us that 200 years back, the woman who built this restaurant, her great-grandfather got a cat as a gift from a wandering magician. Alma stares into the distance and realizes that a whole 200 years have already slipped by. The girl keeps going and says, "Seriously? That was the most incredible meeting ever." She told us a magician face planted right on the doorstep of their restaurant. Then they questioned him, demanding to know what happened. He said he'd gotten hooked on magical treatises and he hadn't eaten a single thing for an entire week. Raul and Luna were left staring in disbelief, while Alma dropped his gaze, drowning in shame. He knows it all went down 200 years ago, yet shame still burned in him. Raul even claims it reminds him of the moon, but the girl cuts in and screams that it's nothing like that. She tells us that 200 years ago, this restaurant was seconds from going under, so her ancestor, before shutting the doors, burned through the last of the ingredients and fed the magician like it was their final shot at survival. The magician was so blown away, he couldn't wrap his head around how nobody ever came to this restaurant. Then he tasted the food and knew it was pure delicious magic. Alma remembered every last detail, and the hostess swore that instead of paying with money, he handed over a cat statue, claiming it was a treasure pulled from the depths of a dungeon, because according to him, that cat statue could lure people in just like a magnet. Raul leaned in and asked if the customers had finally started rolling in. Then the owner grinned and said the restaurant had taken off. Then her eyes watered, and she admitted that week by week, fewer and fewer people kept showing up until the shop hit the point where it couldn't turn a profit anymore, and she blamed it all on her cooking skills. Raul and Luna shot into panic right away. Raul figured the trouble had to be in the restaurant's location, then tells them they'd basically wandered into it by accident. Meanwhile, the girl keeps crying. Luna tries to soothe her and even says her food was insanely tasty. And Alma presses her hand to the cat statue only to realize that after 200 years, it had drained almost all of its mana. So the artifact flipped the script and started working in reverse. Raul can't believe a hermit mage would have dungeon treasure just lying around, and he's convinced it's nothing special. No artifact, just some ordinary junk, because in his mind, the mage is a fraud hunting a free meal. Alma shot a smug smirk the moment Raul called him a liar, then he apologized for what happened to the restaurant. The owner snapped back, begging everyone not to talk about that magician like that. She wipes the tears off her face and says, even on his deathbed, her great-grandfather was truly grateful to that magician, and it's because of him that the girl chose to become a cook. The mistress gets why he did it, squares her shoulders, and looks even more determined. She promises the magician she'll be eternally grateful, no matter what, and the guy stares at the girl, stunned. The hostess snaps out of it, gets visibly excited, and blurts out an apology for crying in front of them, then vows she'll keep sharpening her craft so the master magician won't be disappointed in her food. Alma heads for the exit and says, then in this case, he, Raul, and Luna won't bother you anymore. He nods and declares it's time to go. Raul agrees, and with Luna, they start getting ready to leave. Alma slammed to a stop by the door, turned to the hostess, and blurted that her food was ridiculously tasty, so tasty that nobody could stay indifferent to that aroma. The girl's cheeks flushed with embarrassment as she stared at Alma, and in the end, that guy swore they'd come back and visit her restaurant again. Raul clasps his hands behind his head and admits the restaurant was insanely tasty, then he frets over whether it can get its popularity back. Alma waves it off and tells him he doesn't have to worry one bit. Suddenly, he caught snippets from the crowd. Passers-by were raving about that mouth-watering smell pouring out of the restaurant. They were all headed to that girl's restaurant, and everybody was curious how long had it been standing there. They figured if it smelled that good, then one bite would taste just as amazing. Alma figured the artifact only pulled in people a little at first, but she knew she'd need real talent to keep the crowd hooked, so she slipped a mana stone by the statue where it would burn bright for 1,000 years. Alma couldn't stop thinking about that restaurant again. He wanted to go back. Not in some crazy 200 years, then Luna overheard him and just stared, totally lost on what he meant. Alma clung to the owner's words. She'd keep sharpening her skills no matter what. Raul and Luna suddenly realized the boy had frozen in place, so they hurried back and demanded to know what went wrong. Alma shuts his eyes, grins, and tells them, "I'm fine," but his mind races. Will Luna and Raul accept him when they realize he's the reincarnated one? And then the big question hits, should he even reveal who he really is? Luna blurts out, "What happened to that guy?" Raul says Alma doesn't look like himself at all, and that weirdness really bugs him. He gets serious fast, almost like it shocks him. The second he realizes he's happy, fear claws at him, because what if that happiness slips away? And then he can't help but wonder, is this really the happiness he's been chasing? Raul, Alma, and Luna marched up to the palace, and Raul froze wide-eyed and speechless. Julius had promised them they could stay at the hotel, but right now, the hotel was under renovation. Edward stepped up in front of the entire company and promised the construction would wrap up any minute. Until then, everyone had to stay put and wait. Edward repeats Mr. Julius' warning, they can't let Mr. Alma stay in a place this messy. Alma flashed a smirk and muttered that the guy was at it again, so over the top, Luna clocked that the building dwarfed her house, and Raul chimed in that he actually loved it. Luna, Raul, and Alma hit the brakes, then the whole room falls dead quiet. Then they all burst out shouting, "This isn't a hotel anymore, it's a full-on mansion." Edward marched up to Mr. Julius and demanded, "Will you go to Alma with me?" He reminds him that the man is here to tell his story, then the man clocks Julius's tense silence, like he can see Julius is buried in something. Edward whips around and shrugs it off, saying it's nothing, he'll explain everything later, once the moment finally feels right. Edward stares at the man, hanging on every word, waiting for the rest of his speech to drop, then Julius spins around and flashes a smile. He tells Edward he won't stand between himself and Alma anymore, swears he's done playing the villain, and admits he only wants to help his master any way he can. Julius vows he'll fight for Mr. Alma's carefree life all the way to death, because meeting the man who sheltered him 200 years ago finally gave him the magic lessons that turned his future stone cold determined. Julius slid into a restaurant and met Alma, and the moment they sat down, they went straight for the truth. There was a strange illness raising alarms. A month had already crawled by since Alma chose to stay in the capital, but Julius wasn't done yet. He still had unfinished business that had to be handled. Julius thrusts a picture up on a sheet of paper and tells Alma that multiple people have already had the goddess's gifts stripped away, and every one of them carries the same weird pattern across their bodies. Alma grabs it in his hands and studies it, eyes locked in, like he's trying to decode a curse. The boy feared this pattern meant everything was slipping toward defeat, because he couldn't stop thinking about people whose disease stole their very gifts. Then Alma heard the chilling truth. This strange sickness wasn't just crawling through the kingdom, it was spreading across other continents too. Alma's mind flashes. He swears he's seen the same pattern before, like it's pulling at an old memory, and then he leans in and says the disease might be the work of a curse. He says he's not planning to bail on the capital anytime soon, so he'll dig into this. Julius immediately says he'd be grateful, but then his tone turns sharp as he begs Alma not to do anything reckless. Alma stands up and storms out, and he reassures Julius that losing his gift won't hurt him because he's already been reborn. Yet Julius snaps back. This isn't just a gift, and he suspects someone out there is spreading the disease. And Alma freezes, staring at the man in total shock. Right up on a lonely hill, a dark-haired girl perched and stared down at the city, letting the wind's sharp whistle wash over her ears. Alma leaned in closer at the pattern on the sheet, eyes narrowing as a terrifying thought hit what disease was crushing the whole capital. He then decided to launch a massive study to track down this loss before it swallowed everything.